Good evening and welcome to the May 11th, 2010 meeting of the Glendale City Council. I apologize for our late start. We've been going back to back to back to back on our meetings all afternoon. I apologize for not starting right at 6 o'clock. And Mr. Kasakian, may we have roll, please?
Council members Raymond. Here. Friedman.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Mayor Najarian.
Here. Councilmember Quintero, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, we will. Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation. May 15 is Peace Officers Memorial Day. Peace officers serving as an encompassing term for our men and women who serve in the field of law enforcement. It is a day that we recall the names of those who have been killed in the line of duty, and whereas our city has not remained untouched by such tragedy, we use this opportunity to remember those who paid the ultimate price while in the line of duty. Tonight we pray for the families of those who have lost their lives in the service of our community. We pray that the passage of time has brought some solace to their loved ones, and that our undying gratitude to them for their sacrifice allows for some consolement. We pray for peace not only in the world, but for it to be embed its roots in our own communities, between neighbors and neighborhoods, within the boundaries of this city and beyond. Let our brave police service people find their jobs easier to do by our efforts to live in harmony with one another. Amen.
May we have the next item, please?
Next item is the report for this meeting. The agenda for the May 11, 2010 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, May 6, 2010 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. Next item.
At 3, under presentation and appointments, at 3A is the agenda preview for the meetings of May 18, 2010.
Mr. McFall.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Next week on May 18th, we'll start with the Glendale Housing Authority at 2:30. It's regular scheduled time. We'll have a presentation from the Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding the housing program and proposed budget for fiscal year 2010 through 2011. This is a continuation of the budget meetings that we've been having, moving now into the Housing Authority and Redevelopment Agency. At 2:30 also, on May 18th, will be two presentations. One, again, will be the Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding the Glendale Redevelopment Agency and Economic Development Program proposed budget for fiscal year 2010 and 2011. And then a public hearing by the Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing. This is regarding a 27-space parking exception request by ARC Corporation for public property located at 722 through 724 Thompson Avenue. That evening for City Council at 6 o'clock, there's just a couple of action items. The first is the report from the Director of Parks and Recreation. This will be to set a public auction for property on Jackson Avenue, or Jackson property. Secondly, the Director of Information Services regarding a recommendation to approve a contract with AT&T via State of California Master Services Agreement for CalNet 2 for telephone services for 2 years with an option to renew. And then lastly, there will be a hearing, the Director of Community Redevelopment Housing. This is regarding 2448 through 2468 Honolulu Avenue. This is the adoption of a mitigated negative declaration and approval of a ground lease agreement with the Trader Joe's Corporation. That would be it for next week.
Thank you very much. 3B, please.
Proclamation designating May 16th through 22nd, 2010 as Emergency Medical Services Week.
Councilman Weaver, will you please step forward with the proclamation as I read it? And this will be received by Battalion Chief Godfrey and several others of the department. Please come forward. Okay, here's the proclamation. Whereas emergency medical service is a vital public service, and whereas the members of emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience subtle illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical services system consists of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, and others. And whereas the members of emergency medical services teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical services providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, I proclaim the week of May 16th to the 22nd, 2010, as Emergency Medical Services Week, and encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Mr. Weaver.
Congratulations to all of you. Make the city very proud. I know Verdugo Dispatch gets call. What do we respond to? 99 and 0.6%
Yes.
of all calls within 10 seconds.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And we respond to emergencies within 4 minutes usually.
Well, this last year, almost 13,000 EMS calls this last year, 12,995 to be exact.
And that's because of people like you. So congratulations.
Thank you. Mayor, City Council, staff, and audience, I am Battalion Chief Greg Godfrey, the EMS Battalion Chief in charge of our program here with the City of Glendale. As you can see, I didn't come alone today. I brought members of our EMS team, as you spoke about in the proclamation here. And I want to introduce a few of them that are here with us today. We have Ron Perina from the American Red Cross, who plays an important role for us in our EMS responses that we do, as far as teaching CPR and various things. We have Mark Myers, the CEO from Glendale Memorial Hospital, who's here with us, this gentleman here. We have Kevin Traber, the Emergency Services Director from Providence St. Joe's Hospital over in Burbank, who's with us today. We also have Dr. DeLeon, the Vice President of Medical Affairs for Glendale Adventist, who's here with us today. We have Judy Grimaldi, who's one of our she's our nurse educator for the Glendale Fire Department. She also serves two roles. She also is the PCC nurse, paramedic coordinator nurse for Glendale Adventist, who coordinates our paramedic program in our base hospital there as well. We have Greg Anderson with us here. He's our new EMT coordinator, runs our new BLS ambulance program, basic life support ambulance program. Captain Cody Smith, our paramedic coordinator. He helps me manage the paramedic program as I do other responsibilities as well. And then we have Captain Vince Ruffino back here as our emergency services coordinator. Just want to thank you for the proclamation, for the ability to be able to come up here and talk about EMS. EMS is truly a team effort. The fire department can't do this by ourselves. We have to do this as a group, and you see all of us here that are representing. And that team effort actually starts when you dial 911 and the dispatcher gets the call and they start giving you medical instructions over the phone when you're with somebody, with a family member who's gone down. And then the fire engine comes and they start to treat the patient. The paramedics come in the ambulance and take you to the hospital. We turn you over to the doctors in the emergency room and the nurses, and they take care of you in the hospital until you're let go and back to your normal family doctor or family physician. So it is truly a team effort, and we just want to thank you for this proclamation and thank you for the ability to recognize next week as EMS Week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What is the next item, Mr. Kasaki?
Next item is City Council and staff comments.
Mr. Weaver.
Yeah, I know that staff is working hard on the budget, and I know GTV 6 has to be looking at their government access work plan for the year. I think it's been a number of years since we've looked at the city government access policy. I think it wouldn't hurt during this process to take a look at that again, my colleagues.
Thank you. What is that exact? I mean, so I can.
who can use it and how they use it and what they do. It's a whole work plan. It's
Okay.
been years since we looked at it.
Well, Mr. Draymond.
I would certainly join Mr. Weaver in his request to agendize that. I think we took a look at this in 2007. My view of this hasn't changed, and I support Mr. Weaver's call for a re-look-see.
Okay, we will agendize it. Comments?
Just wanted to congratulate St. Mary's Church on their 35th anniversary gala that they had this last weekend. I was very honored to have been an invited guest, as was the mayor. It was a very well-attended event, and they have a very enthusiastic and very large congregation. And I just wanted to wish them well for the next year, and I wanted to congratulate them on having such a great turnout. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Draymond?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. First item, I have two items. One is in regard to the ongoing, look-see into the stop sign speeding traffic issue on Emerald Isle, and I wanted to ask Steve Zern, our Director of Public Works, if he could update us.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Draymond. Since the time that you brought this first to our attention, we have coordinated with the police department in a number of efforts to evaluate the area on Emerald Isle, basically from Flint Ridge to Grangemont, looking at the stop signs, looking at speeding, doing traffic counts, speed surveys, and enforcement. We put cameras out, and surely we did notice that there were quite a few California stops, rolling stops where there was little or no effort to make the stop. Although they were slowing down, there was still the issue of literally blowing the stop sign. We also had, in certain segments, detected speeding, at least during the time that the police department had enforcement personnel up there. As my understanding, quite a few citations were written for both of those violations. Obviously, we need to continue looking at this, so our plan at this point is, the next step, if you will, is we're going to put the message boards up that have the radar devices in them. So you'll see message boards as you come down, alerting you to the stop sign, warning you to maintain your speeds, and also flashing you what your speed is. The police department also has some other enforcement techniques that they're going to use, and I'm not going to elaborate on those right now because that'll be for violators to find out the hard way if in fact they continue to conduct this kind of behavior up there, which we're going to keep pushing it. We'll see how this works, and we'll monitor it again. And if we need to go to the next step, we'll do that. But we'll continue our vigilance in monitoring and dealing with the speeding and stop sign issues in that area.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zern. Thank you for your effort. And the other item, Mr. Mayor, is just an announcement about the upcoming Art from the Ashes project, which, and I was told we have a slide. I don't know if we do. There it is, which is for the public, June the 19th through July 24th. This is at our site on Brand Boulevard, directly across from Caruso Avenue. This is the site that will become a combination of the new Paseo eventually and the site where Museum of Neon Art will eventually be. This is the program that has more than, as I understand now, more than 60 artists involved. This is a display of art for sale, created from the, if you will, the remnants of the station fire. Created by these artists. The funds go, a portion of them, back to help reestablish Duke-Majan Wilderness Park. It's been a successful program around the country, and you'll be hearing much more about it. But I just wanted to just give a quick reminder: June 19th through July 24th. Art from the Ashes. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Quintero.
I also want to congratulate St. Mary's Church and the Archbishop. It seems hard to believe that it's 35 years. I was out of town, so I was unable to attend. I did have an opportunity, however, to attend the Fire Service Day at the Station 21, and once again, the firefighters and all the volunteers did just an unbelievable job. There was a line that just stretched, I think, almost a block, and little kids and families and everyone. It was very, very well attended. It's more than just an open house. The kind of exhibitions, young kids are introduced to the whole concept of fighting fires in the home, of being careful, and anyway, they did just an excellent, excellent job.
Thank you. And I had the good fortune of being invited to the Horace Mann State Testing Kickoff Week, and quite a rousing pep rally it was for all those hardworking students at Horace Mann and their great principal, teachers, and staff. Now remember, kids, go to bed at 8:30 and do well on your testing. Okay, any other comments? Thanks. Let's move on to the next item.
Next item is the consent calendar. The following are routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed. Cards were submitted to pull items 5C, 5D, and 5I.
That's correct.
I'll move the consent calendar with the exception of C, D, and I.
Thank you. Is there
With the except CD and I?
C, D, and I? A roll call, please.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Please read it 5C, please.
5C is Director of Public Works regarding intention to grant a franchise to Southern California Edison Company for transmitting and distributing electricity to a limited number of city customers. At C1 is the resolution of intent to grant a franchise and setting a hearing date.
I have a card from Mark Olson.
I'm Mark Olson with Southern California Edison. I'm your new representative for Southern California Edison, so I just wanted to introduce myself, and I'll be here for this tonight as well as the next evening when you do consider the franchise discussion. And I have our state of the utility. I realize you have your own utility. We just cover a small portion on the outskirts, but it does have my contact information, phone number on the back of the report I will be giving you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Draymond.
I will move 5C.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. 5D, please.
5D is Director of Public Works regarding street name sign citywide replacement and inventory program. At D1 is motion awarding a contract to 3M in the amount of $698,100 plus $139,620 in contingencies and rejecting all other proposals. At D2 is a resolution appropriating $662,720.
Margaret Hammond.
Good evening, Your Honor, and City Councilman, staff, and audience. My name is Margaret Hammond. I'm here really on behalf of a friend of mine, but I feel very strongly about this subject, and that is the idea of having a sign at the corner of San Fernando Road and Brand that directs that at that point, or just past, actually, I guess it's the railway overpass, it becomes Glendale Boulevard. And you have signs there that say Glendale Avenue with arrows pointing and blah, blah, blah. But when people get there and they see Glendale, they just don't know where to find Glendale Boulevard. And they wander around. I've met them myself, and they've said, well, I know, but I want this address. And you try to say to them, but you have to go back to San Fernando or back to Brand and then make a left turn and go down into Atwater. I believe my friend Lenore has many times asked for this sign. It's really important. There are thousands and thousands of people that go to that corner who go from Glendale or come down San Fernando Road or up San Fernando Road and then are kind of stymied. They see Glendale Avenue with the signs, but where's Glendale Boulevard? And I think it would really be, and I believe she has even offered to pay for it, because it is such a problem. It really is. You would not believe the confusion. It was I don't know who named them or whatever, but it was probably in the days of Tropico or whatever, but forget that. But it would really be a big help to have that sign directing. If you go and look at the corner, you'll see what I mean. It really would help to have that sign directing people to go Glendale Boulevard and with the arrow pointing south, down into Atwater. I thank you very much for listening to me, and I hope you'll think about it. Thank you.
I have another speaker on that, and then we'll take some comments. Nancy Kent?
Hello, I'm Nancy Kent, resident of Glendale, and it is my understanding that this is to replace all street signs and some other city signs in Glendale. And I assume that the money has already been budgeted for this, and it's only $698,000 plus $139,000 for contingencies. And I was told that the current street signs don't meet reflectivity standards, but I would like to respectfully request to my representatives on this council, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is a historic community, and I'm wondering if we can grandfather in our existing street signs and other city signs that are in good condition. And I know of one sign, a street sign, that is faded and illegible at Windsor and Maryland, so please replace that one and any others that are so faded that you cannot read them. But otherwise, please spend this $698,000 on something else. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Draymond?
Well, Mr. Mayor, two things. I guess one, before I make my comment, I guess we should go to Mr. Zern related to the requirement on the street signs, or Mr. Starbird. So I'd like to know that as well.
Mr.
Mayor, members
Zern
of the
or
council.
Mr. Starbird?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, if you'd like, I can also answer Ms. Hammond's question as well.
You can do both.
Oh, I would like to make a comment about that as well.
Okay, I'll answer the other question first. We have 45,000 street name signs in the city of Glendale. Most of these, with the exceptions of ones that we have intermittently replaced, are well over 25 years old. Most of these signs, I can tell you, when I started in this business, there was a man named Al Lawasis at the yard. He hand-painted these signs. Some are faded beyond the ability to even read them. The main thrust of this, though, is the materials that we use to make these signs do not today meet current standards in the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That's reflectivity, it's the type of lettering, and the font of the lettering. And the main issue there is public safety, the ability for emergency response vehicles to clearly designate where they're going. The secondary, obviously, is just directions for the general public as well. So we had planned to do this about 3 years ago. Set up a CIP budget item. It was a large estimate at that time, almost $1.6 million. We decided to parcel that out over a number of years. When we went out for our RFP, and 3M was the company that was the most favorable bidder in this case, we were able to negotiate a contract to do everything, all 45,000 signs, plus a inventory that they would take of all of our signage. So street name signs, regulatory signs, message signs. They will inventory all of those for us. We'll have pictures of those, and then we'll be able to put them into a database. We haven't had that before. A lot of our signage, recently, I think the staff has done a really good job at trying to inventory that, but there's a lot of signs we don't know exactly where they are. A lot of it is, hey, I saw this sign, it's faded, it's knocked down, it's twisted, and then we'll go out and respond to that. So this is very proactive on our part. We see the inventory. We can begin to put our sign maintenance program into a district by district like we do with our concrete and asphalt. Excuse me. But most importantly, it'll allow us to upgrade the signage to meet the current standards. And if I may add, I've been questioned a couple times about how this all fits into our branding effort and that type. The first phase of this project is the inventory, and that's a pretty massive undertaking. It will take us clearly to the end of this year to complete that. That's the time when we begin to consider the fabrication and installation of the signs. So we have a pretty long lead time in which to decide if we want to change shape, the color, if we want to add logos or certain, the city seal, for instance. We've talked to 3M about that. They're very aware of it. They're going to be flexible in how we do that. We've also notified North Star, which is the firm that the redevelopment agency has retained to help with the overall branding. And we've brought this to their attention, and this is on their radar as well. So likely, if street signs do become part of this overall process, even if it's just in a particular area. Let's say we have different signs in the downtown area. We'll be able to accommodate that through this program, and we'll come back to you with, obviously, designs and samples and so forth.
Does that answer your question, Mr.?
Well, it answers the one part of it. The other is just in relation to Margaret Hammond's question about the directional signs and Glendale Boulevard and Atwater. And she is quite right that this question has come up several times. Lenore Solis last time that I recall, and I know that I specifically asked if we could look into it and if some answer or update could be brought back.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Draymond, we've actually done this at least as much as we can do. There's dual property here. So we notified the city of L.A. and asked them, do you mind if we put up signage just differentiating between the two cities in Glendale Boulevard versus Glendale Avenue? Their response was, no, we'll do it. We don't want you to put your sign on our pole. So we asked them for a timeline. They said sometime in the next several months. I've been in this business long enough to know that could be a lot of months. Nonetheless, we put up our signage, and this is what we're going to do. If we get to the point where we see no response from LA, we'll simply mount signage on our property that clearly distinguishes the boulevard from the avenue and LA from Glendale. Right now, we have LA one way, Glendale another way with arrows, but we'll follow through if LA, in fact, doesn't decide to do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Weaver?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Mr. Zern, 45,000 signs, and I'll bet you can find at least one person on every block in this city that would be willing to purchase that sign, put in their house for, say, $10. That'd raise $450,000. I mean, think about it. Somebody on the street, oh, I live on this street, I'd like to take that street sign.
I would imagine. I think some folks have already taken them in the past, but
When you go out to do the database, you won't find any then.
Are you suggesting that we sell the signs?
The old ones.
Do we do
And
that?
we take down the old, what are you going to do, scrap?
Can I answer that? Mr. Starver?
In that regard, having been in a city in a former life that did replace all the street signs, we did the very thing. And the funds, in that case, want to support a community museum. The funds could go to some local cause you'd want to designate or go back in the general fund. But frankly, there was a lot of popularity from people who wanted to buy the signs of the street they lived on.
Even an arts fund.
So we'll look into that.
Okay. Mr. Draymond?
You may recall, Mr. Mayor, that the city of Glendale had a store at one time, Glendale Galleria, when it first opened,
Yes.
where we sold off a lot of our street signage, including those wonderful district signs throughout the city that no longer exist, but now do exist, thanks to Mr. Zimmer.
Okay. Any other comments on that item? That was 5D. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. 5I, please.
5I is Director of Community Planning regarding use of underutilized public land located at 827 Monterey Road as a community garden. At I1 is a motion approving lease of property located at 827 Monterey Road and authorizing city manager to execute appropriate documents.
Margaret Hammond.
Good evening again, Mayor Najarian, members of the City Council and staff and audience. My name is Margaret Hammond. I am on the Clean and Beautiful Committee, and we did support the original Monterey Park, both morally and financially. We really encouraged, and the young people that were involved were just fantastic. They gave a lot of their time and their effort and their own money. And this time that I understand is going to be Kiwanis group is going to be the one that's going to spearhead it and help the people. And I know that our group, Clean and Beautiful, we have voted to financially support it again. And it's a wonderful thing for the neighborhood. The people that are involved in it, I have not been personally. I have enough of my own gardening to do. But as I say, the people in that area where they're in apartments and so forth are just finding it a fantastic opportunity to visit with their neighbors. It's made, from what I understand from the young lady who is directly from Neighborhood Services involved in it, it's just made a big difference in that neighborhood. It has become a neighborhood, neighborly neighborhood. And they really have a wonderful time. So they're looking forward. I think they already have people lined up for the plots. They're waiting for this. So it would be a really terrific, again, and I think any of those things that we can pick up, those lots that lay vacant with weeds and junk thrown on them, and make them into something that's going to beautify our city and make the quality of life for our people, not just the people that are using the gardens, but the people that have to look at the weeds and so forth. And then again, it saves in a way, because then we're not having to clean the darn lots, vacant lots with junk and weeds and so forth. So it's been a terrific program, and I hope we'll do some more of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move 5I1.
Mr. Draymond?
I'll second it, but Mr. Mayor, I had asked also to pull this same item, Margaret, because I wanted to just make mention of the fact that we are moving on to our second garden with others. If you read the report, others in the works, and I wanted to ask Mr. Engel, who is here, if he could just touch briefly on not only this, but the Maryland and the Geneva habitat that are still to come, because people are asking, when will this come to my neighborhood? And there are plans for that. It just happened that this timing worked out, that this one was a second. And before you do, Mr. Engel, I also wanted to compliment the City Council for embracing this idea, and I agree with Margaret. It is a very important piece of community building in the city, and it does also empower our residents to be able to do something also about helping themselves through a difficult economic time on the one hand, but also just a wonderful opportunity to be outdoors and know their neighbors and enjoy their community.
Thank you, Councilmember Draymond, Mayor Najarian, members of City Council. Some of you have talked about your trips back to Washington, D.C., and I doubt whether any of you actually went over to the Department of Agriculture, which wouldn't normally be on your itinerary. But if you had gone to the Department of Agriculture, you would have noticed they have pulled out all of their commercial landscaping and installed community gardens for the people of Washington, D.C. On all of the grounds of the Department of Agriculture. And I bring that up because this is a national movement that in many respects, we kind of preceded to a certain extent with the first Monterey Garden, probably by about a year, with how those things are going. In answer to your question, Councilmember Najarian, or Mayor Najarian, Councilmember Draymond, we have two other gardens that are immediately in planning. One of them will be at the Maryland Mini Park, and it's a part of the park planning process that our Community Services and Parks Division is now undertaking. As that park is designed, there will be a portion of it, I think it's about 25% of the park, that will actually be dedicated to a community garden, and it will be developed as that park is developed. And I think that one will probably come online as that park moves forward. You'll hear about that as they report on that. The second one is the garden that is being built in conjunction with the Habitat for Humanity project. And that one is exciting for us because it takes a little bit of a different tack in that the volunteers that build the Habitat for Humanity housing project, when they are done building their housing project, will actually be the ones that build the community garden and then will gift it then to the citizens of Glendale to use as a community garden for residents of that neighborhood, as well as potentially the residents of the Habitat for Humanity project. we see, as these things move on, other ones coming up, and our opportunity to do these things wherever there's a piece of ground that is available. As Margaret mentioned, we have 42 gardeners on a waiting list to go into this. That doesn't mean that we aren't looking for more people that want to do this. Councilmember Quintero has talked many times about community gardens in the 70s as part of the old CETA program, as community development projects to empowering neighborhoods. It's an idea that's come full circle, and we're happy to be a part of it again. So keep your fingers crossed. I think Maryland will be first, and then Habitat will be second as soon as they complete the construction and the build. One final comment is that we are following the Habitat model, actually, with the construction of the Monterey 2 garden, in that it will be a community-built garden, and our goal is to have it staged, which is what we're all working with the Kiwanis Club right now, on May 22nd at the Great American Cleanup, which you'll hear more about next week. We will actually build that garden from start to finish in one day. We learned on the first garden what we needed to do, and hopefully on the second garden we're going to learn how to do it in one day so we can apply that model and just move to different lots across the city as we find them.
Lastly, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to again thank Glendale Clean and Beautiful for supporting both the first and now the second, and also the Kiwanis Club for their for coming forward to facilitate this second project.
Mr. Weaver, then Ms. Friedman.
Mr. Engel, do we ever look at any of the remnant pieces from the freeways, especially the 134 crossing Glendale, where you see corners because it goes through diagonal? And they're different sizes. That they're just sitting there unattended. Is there any chance to talk to Caltrans if they're a significant size?
Yeah, Councilmember Weaver, members of City Council, one of the projects, actually how we got into this, and I'll cut to it real briefly, is the committee was very concerned about these remnant parcels sitting there actually neglected, kind of a condition of benign neglect over the years, and they said, what can we do to get them improved? And that's how we, weirdly enough, that's how we got into the community garden business, trying to figure out a way to make those pieces of land productive. As we deal with these bigger pieces of land, 18 garden plots isn't real big in the community garden world, but it is in Glendale when you're dealing with a completely built-out city. So we'll be starting to probably look at those smaller plots, and a couple come to mind across from Bistain's.
That's what
I knew you were.
Yeah.
That probably could support 4 to 5 garden plots there.
Ms. Friedman.
I just wanted to echo Mr. Draymond's congratulations and to really acknowledge that the city owes a great debt of gratitude to the Kiwanis and to Glendale
Absolutely.
Clean and Beautiful, because they're really going beyond. And I believe that I read that this was the more money than Glendale Clean and Beautiful had appropriated for any other single project. And I think it really it shows a lot that they were willing to do that. And the Kiwanis as well is raising a lot of money and going to be putting in a lot of manpower to make this garden a reality, and it's just terrific. And I also really like your suggestion, Mr. Engel, that when we remove the artificial turf from those squares downstairs, that maybe we turn those into community garden plots. So great thinking outside of the box, and we'll follow up on that.
The literal box out down there, yes. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Quintero.
I just want to say, if people drive by, I mean, it's just such a pleasure when you glance over and see the size of the gardens, and it's really turned into more than just a sort of food source. I mean, it's really kind of an architecturally significant plot of land that we have there.
The fun part for me, Councilmember Quintero, actually, and we heard a little bit about that, is what the social community that's developed out of those 18. I think there's 20 garden plots. There's 24 gardeners and 20 garden plots, because some of them have half plots. Is the community that's developed out of that, those people who did not know each other until they met the first day they paid their registration fee. That's the cool part.
Ms. Friedman.
Something that I forgot, and this is very preliminary, but something that I don't think anybody knows. Because this garden, the Monterey Garden, is the first community garden in the nation, I believe, to use reclaimed water. It's pretty groundbreaking, pretty innovative. And I mentioned this to the Metropolitan Water District on whose board of directors I sit, and they were fascinated. They had no idea, and they're interested in doing some kind of a sponsorship on that Monterey Garden, some kind of an interpretive display. I don't know if anyone's reached out to you yet.
But I'm going ka-ching.
Yes, they said ka-ching. Then not a tremendous amount of money, but that they're interested in doing some kind of a demonstration there about agriculture and reclaimed water and drought-resistant gardening, and willing to do some sort of an investment there. So it's a little preamble to hopefully what's to come.
Very good. We'll check into it with them.
Mr. Draymond?
And Mr. Engel, I know Mr. Engel knew, because the day we opened that garden, you slipped me a note saying, by the way, don't forget to mention that this actually we didn't. I don't think I knew that it was the first in the nation, but
It's
certainly
first in California for
state
sure.
of California for sure, using entirely recyclable
And
water.
the second garden will be the third. The second garden that slipped in between us was actually City of San Jose, and if you go to any league meetings, they'll try to tell you they were the first, and they were not.
Good to know.
All right.
Thank
you.
Is there a motion?
Yes. Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Mr. Mohill, I can't accept your card for 5H because we had already passed that prior to your submitting it. Next item, please.
Next item would be oral communications.
And we'll start the first portion of oral communications, dealing with announcements and community interest items. Arno Yeretsian, followed by Colin Bogart, and then Leon Mayer.
Evening, dear City Council members, dear Mayor, City of Glendale. I'm here on behalf of Avril Bookstore. We're inviting an author all the way from Germany. Her name is Muriel Murak Weisbach. She's a political journalist who traveled the world for the last 20 years, and she just recently published a new book entitled Through the Wall of Fire, Armenia, Iraq, Palestine, From Wrath to Reconciliation. The book is ultimately about taking steps towards reconciliation. She takes three cases: the Armenian genocide, the U.S. invasion of Iraq, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. People who've been in conflict for decades, some of them centuries. And the book is unique in that it provides an actual plan, guidelines of how to come to peace. And she also focuses on the children. She presents the point of view of the children who've witnessed these horrors. And basically the first and most important step, she says, is recognizing the truth of what happened and seeing those who were ultimately responsible way at the top. Only then will we be able to forgive and forget. So the event will take place at the Glendale Central Library Auditorium on Thursday, May 20th, 2010 at 7:30 p.m. Father Vascan Movsesian of inhisshoes.org will be there to introduce the author. And the event is co-sponsored by the Glendale Public Library. And please come by. I'm sure it'll be a very interesting event and discussion. So that's about it. Thank you.
Colin Bogart, followed by Leon Mayer.
Mayor Najarian, council members, city staff, good evening. My name is Colin Bogart. I work for the LA County Bicycle Coalition, working in partnership with the city of Glendale on the Place Grant Safe and Healthy Streets project to make Glendale better and safer for bicyclists and pedestrians. And I'm here this evening to remind everyone that Bike Month continues here in Glendale. And I'd like to briefly tell you about a couple of the upcoming events in the next week. I'll be very quick. Want to mention on Saturday, May 15th, we have a Discover Foothill event, which is to celebrate the new bike lanes actually on the county section of Foothill, but also in anticipation of bike lanes to be striped in the Glendale section in the near future. On Monday, May 17th, we have a documentary screening entitled Contested Streets at the Central Library. Bike to Work Day is coming up Thursday, May 20th, and we're going to have 5 pit stops, 5 rest stations in the city of Glendale for Bike to Work Day, where people who are biking can stop, get a snack, something to drink before they continue on to work. And then we also have the Historic Parks Ride coming up on Saturday, May 22nd. That'll be in the morning starting at 9 a.m. at Chess Park in partnership with the Glendale Historical Society. For more details about all of the events that are happening for the remainder of May, people can go to la-bike.org/Glendale/Bike Month, or they could also, I'm happy to say, go to the City of Glendale website in the What's Hot box on the top right. You can click on a link there as well, or people can call 818-334-9731. And I'd like to invite you to attend, and people in the community to attend. All of these events are free. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Leon Mayer.
My name is Leon Mayer. I'm here on behalf of the Glendale Library and the Friends of the Library. And there's so many bicycle events going on. I invite everybody to come to the library, where you get all the information, all the updates on the movies they're doing about biking and everything else. And while you're at the library, keep in mind that on May 19th, the Friends of the Library are having their annual meeting. And right after the annual meeting, we're having the Sisters in Crime. These are 4 lady authors who talk about paranormal activity, weave them into mystery novels, like Speaking from the Grave and sinister things like that. And so that'll be an interesting event to come to May 19th at 7 o'clock. Now, on May 30th, did I say September? May 30th, we will have Paul Ignatius, who will speak about his book, On Board, My Life in the Navy, in Government, and in Business. And his book will cover historical and significant events that have happened in the 20th century. And who should know better than Paul Ignatius, an Armenian American who was born here in Glendale in 1920 and went to Hoover High School, class president, tennis varsity player, went to USC, graduated with honors, went to Harvard, graduated from the School of Business, joined the Navy, served in the South Pacific in the invasion of the Philippines, the liberation of the Philippines on an aircraft carrier. And he also then joined the government, was Secretary of Navy, Undersecretary of the Army, and thereafter he was president of the Washington Post, and went into business as the president of Air Transport Association. He'll be at the library May 30th. That's a Sunday, 3 o'clock. That should be a great event. It's co-sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, Glendale Chamber of Commerce. Everybody here is invited to come if you can make it. I'd like to invite the Board of Education members to come, the college board to come, and it's going to be a great event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any other cards for this portion of oral communications. Let's move on, please.
8A is City Manager regarding request from the Glendale Chamber of Commerce Patriotism Committee for the city's co-sponsorship of the annual Memorial Day ceremony and contribute $2,100 towards the expense of the event. At 8A1 is a motion to co-sponsor the Glendale Chamber of Commerce Patriotism Committee's annual Memorial Day ceremony and approving a contribution of $2,100 towards the expenses of the event. At 8A2 is a motion directing staff to include the annual Memorial Day ceremony in the special event sponsorship budget.
I do have a speaker, Mike Mohill.
The Mayor, Nigerian council members. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Burbank. Go to the dedication of a man by the name of Corporal Maxton. He's a Medal of Honor winner, Vietnam War. And I never go to these events. And I was just moved a few weeks ago to go. I am a Vietnam vet. I don't talk about it very often. But I was so moved by the event that I said to myself, you know what? I never go to any of these events in Glendale for Memorial Day or any day honoring the armed services. And I'm proud to see that Glendale has stepped forward and making this donation to the cause. And, you know, there are a lot of people who've given their lives for us to be here, to fight back and forth. And I give my hat off to them because, after all, it's what it's all about, democracy, and they saved our lives to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver.
I was just going to say, we know what this is all about, so if you don't need discussion, I'll move 8A102.
I'll second it. We've been doing it for many years, and it's actually kind of gets bigger every year. More and more people attend. For those that are watching at home, it takes place on Isabel Street next to the City Hall and across the street from the police department. So,
Whole area is blocked off with seats put up. It's a nice morning.
Okay, let's take roll call.
Is there a motion and a second?
It was me.
and a second.
Thank you. Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes.
At 8B is City Treasurer regarding
Was there a
court...
card? I'm sorry. Was there a card submitted?
I'm
sorry.
Your name?
Right.
Colonel Worley wanted to say a few words in regards to this event under staff report, so if you would be okay with
as
the mayor
part of the
and the
staff
council.
report.
Yes.
Okay.
So
He's more than welcome to come forward.
Just to lose.
We would just like to inform the public about the event.
I don't think we'll re-vote. We won't reconsider, but
no,
we'll hear
it has,
your comments.
No, we like the vote. We just need to inform the public about the event and when it's going to take place. Thank you. Please go.
Fellow council members, just to add what has already been said, for the Memorial Day ceremony, which will take place at 9:30 at the memorial site on May 31st, Memorial Day. Our keynote speaker will be Mr. Ignatius, who you've already heard about. And I just want to mention that during that ceremony, we're also going to be adding a name to the panel for Corporal Barboza Flores, who lost his life as a Marine Corporal in Afghanistan last summer. And his family is going to be there in attendance as well. So I just wanted to pass that on and invite everybody to be there at 9:30 on that day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next item, please.
At 8B is City Treasurer regarding quarterly investment review for the quarter ending March 31, 2010. At B1 is a motion to note and file this report.
Mr. Baruki.
Mayor Najarian, the council members, I'd like to give a quick update on the status of the city portfolio for the third fiscal quarter of 2010. Let's go over some of the numbers. The city portfolio ended the third fiscal quarter at $455 million in March, down $21 million from the $476 million at the end of December. Let's see, we were down 21, but during the quarter, we had to pay out $23 million for the Shoal Canyon lease buyout. So that explains the $21 million. Interest earnings for the quarter remained flat, improving only $52,000 to a tad under $2.2 million, as the average rate of return for the quarter dropped 1 basis point to average 1.93%, down from 1.94. As a point of reference, the rate of return for the state fund, the local agency investment fund, dropped 4 basis points from 0.6% to 0.56% for the third quarter. Let's take a look at the market. As Yogi Berra once said, it's deja vu all over again. The Fed met at the end of March, and then again at the end of April, just 11 or 12 days ago, and voted not only to keep interest rates at their historic lows, but also reiterated their policy position that rates would remain at exceptionally low levels for an extended period of time. To refresh some memories out there, exceptional low rates means that the Fed has set rates at a range of anywhere from 0 to 25 basis points on basically overnight money. When we're talking low, 0 is about as low as you can go. The Fed first used the extended period language in March of 2009 and has repeated it at each meeting since. Interest rates will stay low as long as unemployment remains high and inflation remains low. Although the economy expanded somewhat in March as consumer spending and manufacturing gained, the Fed said that spending is still constrained by unemployment and tight credit, and that employers are reluctant to add to payrolls. This is certainly not good news for fixed income portfolios like our city portfolio. But there is positive news to report. The city portfolio is solid and it is safe. It wasn't that long ago that the global financial meltdown caused serious concern for many municipal portfolios. I am pleased to report that ours has weathered the storm. And the city portfolio is very liquid. In just the last few months, Glendale Water and Power needed $23 million for the Shoal Canyon purchase. And just yesterday, redevelopment needed $11 million when the judge ruled in favor of the state. Treasury was able to accommodate both requests on short notice. Treasury was able to do this, pull money from cash accounts, rather than risk selling securities in the marketplace. So quickly to recap, the city portfolio is stable and safe. It's very liquid. And our greatest challenge remains managing the portfolio to maintain a market return. That concludes my remarks. Any questions?
Questions? I have a question.
Yes.
What relationship do we have with Goldman Sachs in our portfolio? Do we have any dealings with them?
Scratching his head.
Yes, we have, I believe we have a small money market fund with them. Overnight money. I think that is one of, pardon?
How small is small?
Well, we have, I believe, a total of 5, and I think we probably have under $1 million there. Let me just take a quick peek.
I mean, the reason I ask, obviously, is...
$100,000.
Okay.
To keep it open.
It's not much.
But as far as we don't use Goldman Sachs as a broker. In fact, I can't think of any. I don't know that Goldman is active in the public arena in California.
Okay.
I just don't see their name.
Ms. Friedman.
Just out of curiosity, we don't have any investments in PG&E, do we?
No.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure, given Prop 16 and
No.
that entails.
No.
Too bad. I would love to have the opportunity to make a statement by dumping PG&E stock.
Sell.
So.
Okay. Were you going to make a motion, Mr.
Let's
Weaver?
move 8B1.
There is a card.
I have a card submitted for 8C, as in Charlie.
This is
Not for
this is
8B.
B.
This is B.
Yes.
You are mistaken, and you're also out of order. I need to tell you that. We have a motion. Was there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Darrow,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Let's move to 8C.
8C is Director of Community Planning regarding proposed fees for Community Planning Department Building and Safety Division. At C1 is resolution adopting revised fees.
This is a cleanup to include the Public Works fees in the ordinance that we adopted
You have a card on
previously.
this one?
Correct?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, you adopted, this was in the report that of the fees that you adopted 2 weeks ago, because due to an error in the way that the agenda was prepared for you by our staff, we have to bring it back, and we're asking you to adopt the same fees. These are the same fees that Stuart Tom explained to you 2 weeks ago.
It's a readoption of what we already approved.
Okay, this is resolution adopting the fees. I do have a request on this one from Mr. Mohill. I'll take that as a pass. I'll take that as a pass.
Move
Is there a motion?
8C1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero? Yes. Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Let's move on to the next item, please.
Moving on to the hearings at 9 and 9A is Director of Community Planning regarding proposed ordinance amending Title 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code 1995 relating to establishing a reasonable accommodation procedure, PZON 2009-004. At A1 is an ordinance for introduction.
Treasurer.
Okay, would anyone like a report?
No.
It is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. I don't have any cards, so I will close the public hearing.
I'll move 9A.
Well, you're going to make an...
I mean, I'll
you're gonna
introduce the ordinance at 9A.
This is an ordinance for introduction.
9A1,
All right.
establishing reasonable accommodation procedure. Thank you. The next item, please.
Next item at 9B is Director of Community Planning regarding appeal of use variance, case number PVAR 2009-036, located at 1371 East Colorado Street. At B1 is a motion sustaining the Planning Commission's decision of approval with the conditions as approved. At B2 is a motion sustaining the Planning Commission's decision and approval based on modified conditions of approval. At B3 is a motion to overturn the Planning Commission's decision denying the use variance and directing staff to return with appropriate findings or denial.
Thank you. We're ready for your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As mentioned, this is an appeal of a Planning Commission decision from the Planning Commission date of November 18, 2009.
Mr. Collin, for the
Sorry?
record, tell us who you are.
Sorry, Brad Collins, Senior Planner with the Community Planning Department. The property in question is Zone C1. Just give you a quick background on the property and information on it relating to the application. And property is Zone C1, Neighborhood Commercial, and C3, Commercial Services, designated as Neighborhood Commercial Community Services within the land use element of the general plan.
Mr. Collins, one moment. I will open the public hearing.
Start over.
Sorry about that. You can continue, please.
Thank you. The current uses on the subject lot are commercial. Properties along Colorado are zoned and developed with commercial uses. Properties along Orange Grove, which is the street just to the north of the property, are zoned and developed with multifamily residential uses. The multifamily residential uses are separated from the commercial uses by a parking lot, and this parking lot is shared by the commercial uses fronting on Colorado. The project was determined to be categorically exempt from environmental review. The retail aspect of the bakery, which is the application in question, has been in operation since 1992, and the use variance was approved for wholesale in a commercial zone in 1999. A renewal was applied for in 2004, where the use variance was approved by the zoning administrator until the time of 2014. This was then appealed by one of the neighbors and heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals. The Board of Zoning Appeals sustained the zoning administrator's decision for approval and required the business to renew their use variance in 2009. The Planning Commission approved the most recent use variance submitted with conditions. The hearing tonight is for an appeal to the City Council, and that's mentioned the November 18, 2009 decision by the Planning Commission to approve a use variance for the continuation of a 4,140 square foot neighborhood bakery to operate as both retail, 1,000 square feet, and wholesale, 3,140 square feet, in both the C1 and C3 zones. The basis of this appeal is to request to modify the condition of approval relating to the renewal period for the subject use variance.
At the Planning Commission meeting, testimony was received by several neighbors of the subject commercial property. The neighbors stated concern regarding noise, truck traffic, and parking of delivery vehicles in the middle of the night. After consideration of all the evidence presented at the Planning Commission hearing, the Planning Commission conditioned the approval such that the applicant would need to reapply for a new use variance within 2 years of the approval date. The Commission determined that the business could be impacting the surrounding neighbors that should come back in 2 years to ensure the conditions of approval are being met and the business is compatible with adjacent properties. As part of the approval, the Planning Commission also conditioned the business such that its hours of operation would be restricted from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mondays through Saturdays, with the exception that the bakery would be allowed to be open till 10 p.m. on Mondays and Tuesdays. Additionally, the Commission further conditioned the business to limit the loading and unloading to the subject property only, and that loading, unloading, running of truck engines, and other loud noises shall be prohibited between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. every day of the week. While this was put in place to help address the concerns raised by the neighbors, it could be difficult to enforce because the engines idling can stop and start at any time, and because the parking and loading areas in question are located behind the building, blocked from view from Orange Grove Avenue. Staff had provided a survey as an attachment in the staff report to Council. The survey shows delivery hours for 6 businesses that share the parking lot at the rear of the commercial buildings. The survey also includes 6 businesses adjacent to the bakery, and that's to the east of the bakery, that do not share the parking lot, but do have parking at the rear of their building. Based on staff's review, it appears that all 6 businesses received deliveries. Of those businesses, none of the businesses reported deliveries in the evening or early morning hours. It should be noted that while the appellant has provided photos of the rear parking lot with various delivery trucks, it is not clear which truck is related to which business, including those that might be used by the bakery. The appellant has concerns regarding the 2-year duration of the use variance and would like to be granted approval for 5 years. The Council may want to consider modifying the condition to require the business operation be reviewed within 2 years to determine compliance with the conditions of approval as set by the Planning Commission. This review would include input from both the Police Department and Neighborhood Services to help determining the business's compatibility with the neighbors. However, 2-year review, which found continuing problems, could only be resolved through a revocation hearing, and the standards for revocating a permit are more difficult to reach than the standards for denying a use variance. Staff is recommending that the City Council sustain the Planning Commission decision to approve the use variance, case number PVAR 2009-036, based on the findings and conditions of approval as voted upon by the Planning Commission. A motion for the Council's consideration is provided to sustain the Planning Commission's determination to approve the subject case. If the Council is inclined to overturn the Planning Commission decision, an alternate motion is also included. Behind the Council, I have put up some plans and photographs submitted by both neighbors and the applicant. In addition, there's an aerial photograph looking from the south, looking toward the north. The subject property bakery is highlighted. If you would like, I can give you a quick tour of what's out there. I'm available for any questions.
Ms. Friedman.
Can you show me either on there or on these photos where the residential properties are?
Yes,
in
I'm glad
relation to the parking lot and the bakery?
Be glad to.
We have also the slides that are loaded up if you want to show them. The mouse is
It's
right
up to the Council. I can either.
I think it's better if we use that rather than you come up to the board.
Okay. Does he have something that will allow him to mark it on this? Okay.
We'll do it from the staff seat. Or, no, the mouse won't reach. Actually, it's better if he presents from that seat. Right there, you can go ahead.
And while he's getting ready, is this a de novo hearing, so we know?
Oh, that word again.
Question.
Yes, it is a de novo hearing.
Okay.
So the council has authority, as we discussed before, to overturn the decision or just modify the conditions or approve it as the Planning Commission approved it.
Okay, thank you.
We'll jump to this slide, hopefully. Well, let's go back here. This is, if you can see the
the cursor, Verdugo, and Colorado. The bakery occupies these two portions here. The parking lot is accessed off of Orange Grove and comes in between two multifamily areas about here. And then you've got the parking lot that comes in between the commercial uses along Colorado here, parking lot, and then the multifamily on either side. Does that help?
Do you have a picture?
north.
Do you have a
Do
photograph?
you have that photo as a slide?
No.
Okay, so I do need to have him come to this, and I know from the DRB hearings that they can actually pick a little bit of that up.
They can, that's fine.
Go to that other.
Well, there's this slide
this-
too.
No, but I'd like to be able to see there on
The
that.
mics? Yeah, those, we
mind.
can turn those mics on if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
If you can just
come
do
on
it
up.
real quickly, just so I get a better sense.
Again, this is Verdugo, Colorado. The parking lot that's in between the multifamily residential here, multifamily residential here. This is the parking lot. The access from Orange Grove coming back here. And the parking lot continues along this way here, where we've got a retail, the bakery, and then there's, I believe, 4 other uses in here, a total of 6 that share this parking lot.
Great, thank you.
Does that help?
Absolutely.
Other questions? I'm going to call the appellant up. And how much time do you think you need, Mr. Khan?
Probably about 10 minutes.
Okay, I'll give you 10 minutes. And will that include, are these other cards part of your
Maybe 12 minutes total.
group?
Just a couple more minutes for them.
Okay. I'm not sure if they're clipped together, so, okay, well, let's just start with you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City staff. My name is Rodney Kahn. My offices are located here in the city of Glendale. Their Chromatic Bakery is what we're speaking about here this evening. It's a small, family-owned business that's been at this location almost 20 years. When I say it's a family-owned business, it truly is. The 2 adult parents work there. The 2 adult children work there, along with a daughter-in-law. This business, to them, is their livelihood. They take it very seriously, and they operate it in a professional manner. Our use variance request was simple, at least that's what we thought. We had applied for a renewal of the previous approval 10 years ago. It was approved. 5 years ago, we had the renewal. The exact same use. The square footage, the floor area ratio, the way the business operated, everything was the same. So when we had our public hearing, we assumed that since we had met all the conditions of approval both times, that we would just simply have our public hearing. The staff was recommending a 5-year approval timeline, which is the same timeline the last 2 times was given to us, and we would move forward. That was the 3rd renewal. Obviously, that did not happen, and that's why we're here this evening. The Planning Commission approved our project. We are looking at just one condition, which is the time extension. But what the Planning Commission also did was they imposed hours of operation on this business that the other businesses in the complex did not have. This stems from the fact that there is a shared parking lot by 7 actually businesses in this area, 6 of which get large truck deliveries. The concern or comments that were raised at the Planning Commission related to noise, related to trash, and also related to delivery hours, because there were some deliveries that were made in the late hours of the night and on the weekends. There was discussion back and forth as it relates to whose trucks were those, and it couldn't be identified as to whose trucks they were. And it still couldn't be identified to whose trucks they were. Were there some of the bakeries, or were there other deliveries as well? One of the things that we discovered was that the people that were complaining had stated they were all the bakery's trucks, which they weren't. The bakery has identified some problems that the neighbors pointed out to them, and in doing so, they corrected those problems. A few things I'd like to point out as things that I think are relevant. First of all, there are 2 city agencies that are responsible for dealing with noise issues, code violations, trash, debris, etc. One is Neighborhood Services and Community Development, as you know, and the second is the Police Department. Both of those agencies had been contacted as it relates to this application. Both of them had no comments and no concerns. If this truly was an issue, you would think that those 2 departments that are responsible for regulating would have some comments, if nothing else. Also, as part of your package, you were given letters of support. And those letters of support numbered about 22. And those letters of support were obtained by adjacent businesses and residents immediately around the bakery. And I'll spare you all the different 22 letters, but just as a summary, I'll read you what was signed by many of them, that they are the owner of the business, in this case it was Lillian's Flour, adjacent to Kermanic Bakery. The purpose of this letter is to verify that I've had no problems or issues with Kermanic Bakery at all. They have been an excellent business neighbor and have never given me any sort of problems or issues in all of these years. They have always respected us as a neighbor and kept their business activities to a minimum. I have no concerns with Kermanic Bakery continuing to do business as they have been for the past 5 years. The other thing that I think is important to point out, the Planning Commission approved the use variance. They approved it, and then they conditioned it. If there were concerns, or if there were problems and issues, they would not have approved it, whether it be for 2 years, 5 years, or any amount of time. What we think or what we are asking for, which we hope is fair and is reasonable, if there are issues that the Kermanic Bakery can correct, they have done so, and they will continue to monitor their responsibilities. What they cannot do, though, they cannot regulate what the other businesses do. They cannot regulate their deliveries, their hours of operations, which are unlimited, the type of trucks that come in there. That is outside of their responsibilities. Unfortunately, what's been going on is the Kermanic Bakery is taking the brunt of this area for the other commercial businesses. Why is that? Because the Kermanic Bakery requires a discretionary approval, and the other businesses do not. So in terms of the information that's been provided as it relates to deliveries, we have documentation that's been provided to you that shows that deliveries come for other businesses at different hours of the night and different hours of the day. We're the only ones that actually have monitored cameras up in that area. The most we can do is hold ourselves responsible, which is what we have done. So what we are asking for, we think, would be, in terms of a fair and reasonable request, is to maintain the precedent that was established. The approval in the past 2 times was given for 5 years, and we're simply asking that the council maintain that approval record, which is for another 5 years, instead of the 2 years that's been suggested by the Commission. I'll conclude my remarks. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Ms. Friedman.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do they need to be operating trucks in and out of the parking lot during all of their hours of operation?
Councilmember Friedman, the answer is no. If you look at the staff report, and staff was very clear as to what are their main, it's not just deliveries, but it's delivering out and trucks that are coming in. Their main day for delivery is Monday. Monday is their main days. The other days, they don't deliver. In terms of trucks coming in, they get deliveries Monday through Saturday. but they get about one delivery a day.
And what about trash trucks? When do those come and go?
I would have to defer to them as it relates to the trash trucks because I really don't know.
So my next question is, what hours would they prefer to be operating? If they had their druthers, what would they like their hours of operation to be?
I think what we looked at was the hours of operation that we gave to the commission, and if you look at your packets, and I'll read them, just...
Yeah, I know what the commission, and it's okay if you want to repeat it, I know what the commission conditioned them, but what I'm not clear on was whether that was a compromise, if they would prefer different hours, or if that was what they wanted.
I'm sorry for interrupting. The response was that we could live with those hours of operation. So what I'm saying to you is that we would accept those conditions as the hours of operation. We can live with that.
No, I understand. My question is, what would they prefer? What would be optimal for them?
I could go back and ask them, but I think the reality would be is just like any other business in this area. Previously, they didn't have any hours of operation for restrictions. All up until this time, they've never had hours of operation of restrictions. I would assume most people want the flexibility to operate their business within the law whenever they would like to.
Okay, I guess I'll ask them, or maybe they can address what hours previously they were operating and whether this changed their hours of operation.
Sure.
Mr. Quintero.
Commission basically wants this bakery to close at 6 p.m. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Khan, for now. I have a couple questions. Is there, there was only one appellant. It's not a situation where there was an appeal by the residents here, correct? The appeal by Mr. Khan's client, or by Mr. Khan, is to challenge the 2-year period rather than the 5-year period.
Correct.
Okay. So is there anyone from the Planning Commission here?
I don't see anybody.
Okay, I have a problem with that, number one. Let me just go through my problems. It's a decision by the Planning Commission. It's not as if a resident, although residents may have opinions on this, but it was not appealed by a resident in conjunction with Mr. Khan. And as a de novo hearing, let me get this straight. If it's this council's decision, we could completely deny the use anyway.
That's correct. And again, just so you know, that everybody who wanted notice, including the appellant / applicant, were informed in writing that this would be a de novo hearing. And we are bringing that issue back to you. But part of the...
First, I would have very much liked to have someone from the Planning Commission here, since they were the last decision-making body on this. So, we're hearing from staff as to what they think, the Planning Commission's rationale was, but staff itself is conflicted, is not conflicted, but is inconsistent. At the initial hearing, it says they recommended the 5 years. Now, they don't. They recommend that we uphold the Planning Commission's decision. If we're really trying to hold a hearing where we're trying to get into the real issues, it would be critical for someone from the Planning Commission to be here and tell us exactly what issues they felt were critical to them, what facts, in giving it only a 2-year extension. So we could address that issue rather than go through this whole, it's a whole routine that we could, if we wanted to get into every nut and bolt of the procedure, take hours doing. I just want to express my frustration at that.
And it's a valid point, because in the past, when these decisions were reviewed by the Board of Zoning Appeals, the former Board of Zoning Appeals, it was sort of a practice. There wasn't anything written where somebody from the BZA did come to do exactly what you said, explain the rationale for the decision. I think we've gone away from that only because at some point it became that there was a perception that maybe that BZA member was actually testifying at the hearing rather than just giving input. So that's something that obviously that I can discuss with Mr. Agani as far as whether that's a practice that a Planning Commission member would like to come and sort of explain the rationale.
Is the role of the Planning Commission embedded in the charter or by ordinance?
It is in the code.
They have bylaws.
I'm sorry?
They have bylaws.
But I think the question is, it's in the code.
Okay. I'm just very frustrated with much of our procedure here, much of what we're doing today. I think maybe duplicative, maybe irrelevant to what the key issues were to the Planning Commission. And since the appeal is of the Planning Commission's decision, you're throwing us back to square one, where we don't have to be at square one necessarily. If we knew exactly what the crux issue was in the minds of those, had to be at least 3 commissioners that made this decision.
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Hagani.
I just need, I think I need to speak a little bit, in all fairness to the Planning Commission. We never asked them to, if they wanted to be represented, so that we never asked the Planning Commission chair to see if anyone from the Planning Commission would like to come here, or if the Planning Commission would like to send them. So, and it has, even when the BZA members came here, they opted to do that as on their own volition. They're not required to be here. If it is the direction of the City Council to make that part of the procedures, we could ask the Planning Commission to discuss that and add that to their procedures. So I just feel a bit responsible here to not speak on their behalf, because we didn't ask them. And also, it's staff's job to encapsulate the gist of the Planning Commission's arguments and present them to you. I can tell you that staff did not recommend 2 years, but at the public hearing, the Planning Commission examined the issues to the level of detail that staff and Brad can speak for himself, the person who's worked on this may have changed his mind. And by the way, I wanted you to know that Che Hill from Neighborhood Services, who is familiar with this site, is also available to answer questions.
Okay. And the reason I ask that is because I'm giving the appellant a chance to present his case. I'm looking to see who's here to present the other side of the case. Now, is that the unbiased staff report that we just heard from Mr. Collins, or is there someone else who will argue why specifically the 2 hours is necessary? Can Mr. Collins do that? Can you do that?
I could,
because I have some questions of that other side, whoever that other side is. I do have plenty of speakers, and we'll get to all the speakers, I can assure you all, but I'm just trying to sort this out procedurally. I'm turning to the other side, and who is the other side? Mr. Garcia.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, in this particular hearing, there's one interested party, and that's the appellant. Sometimes we have it where there are 2, where you have an applicant and an appellant who are different parties opposed. In revocation, you might actually have staff who's an actual advocate in a particular case. But in this type of hearing, in this particular hearing, we only have the one party that's actually advocating, that has an interest in this particular hearing. But every member of the public that's here to speak has the right to testify as to the correctness or incorrectness of the Planning Commission's decision, or whether to uphold or deny the decision in its entirety.
They do have the right to speak, but they will not be afforded the 10-minute time that I gave to Mr. Khan.
That's
and that's the issue that I'm facing. So let's just move on. Enough of that. I think I've made my comments clear. Harry Sahagian, followed by Mariam Kabadayan.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, I want to give a little quick back.
These are going to be 3 minutes.
I'm going to make it as fast as possible. I'm going to give a real quick background on the family that owns this bakery.
Your name for the record, too.
This family immigrated to the
You're Harry Sahagian?
Harry Sahagian.
Thank you.
Yes. This family immigrated to the United States in 1974 from Lebanon. They came here, worked hard, found a pizza shop on Colorado Boulevard, 1373, location we're looking at. Got their funds together, purchased that pizza shop, worked tirelessly to pay off that place, established this business, and made it the first Armenian bakery catering to the Armenian community in Glendale. After 23 years, it's become a staple in Glendale. Everyone knows Kermanic Bakery. Unfortunately, with that, due to its location, we're also surrounded by Orange Grove, which has tenants, and that grew. They built apartment buildings, they built more homes. Next thing you know, you get this issue between when commercial meets residential. the rear of this, this whole thing comes down to one thing. It's the rear location is the parking lot, which is shared by 6 other businesses. The tenants of specifically one building that's on Orange Grove, I think it's 1354. Last time when we had the hearing, had issues with trucks running all night, with problems with noise and this and that, and we said, hey, this wasn't ours. They said, well, you know what, you're up here now, we're going to take this out. So basically we fell on the sword for 6 other businesses that the pictures will show get deliveries at all hours of the night. We put up a camera system just to prove this. I said, why don't we just put up a camera system, we get a video and take pictures of this, show these guys, look, we're not the only ones here. There's 6, there's a meat market, there's a Thai food restaurant, there's a Argentinian store. All these guys get deliveries all the time. And why are we taking the brunt of this? Well, like one tenant told me once, you know what, you're up there, that's where we're going to take it out. Okay, no problem. So they said, okay, these are the changes we want. So in our last hearing, we said, fine, we're gonna make those changes just to get us out of this. Okay, and then the one problem came up, oh, you know what, we're going to put this for 2 years. Well, I don't know too many businesses that can plan just 2 years, knowing that there's this cloud over their head that in 2 years, hey, you know, this everything can fall on you, irregardless whether you're doing something right or wrong. So that was just really heartbreaking, especially since we've gotten 10, 5, and then they said, oh, you know what, it started in 24 months. That's what this came down to. With all the other changes we made, including Mr. Friedman's question about the hours and truck operation, we met with the tenants personally, knocked on doors. How can we help you? Gave our personal cell phone numbers. Said, here's my cell phone number. Call me. And they do. 11 p.m. You're out with your family. Yes, how can I? Oh, it is. Let me see if it's ours. Call our trucking. Oh, no, that's not ours. I'm sorry. We did everything.
Please.
And now, that's the only thing we wanted to change, is just keep it 5 years so we can plan. Just having that 2 years over your head is just really hard.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Mariam Kabadayan. Followed by Robert Thomas.
City members. Okay, we start the bakery with nothing. It was at that area. Me and my older son, we start the bakery. We work very hard. My youngest son used to come from high school, help us, and then go home, do his homework. My husband didn't left his job. He was going to support us if we didn't succeed. And then we had health insurance there. After 5 years, my husband joined us. We, all the family, worked very hard. We are okay now. We didn't bother nobody. We are the first Armenian bakery. Now it's more than 200 bakeries, Armenians. We didn't bother us at all. We're working only in our bakery, you know, we're thinking about our family. This bakery survives 3 families, my grandkids. We want to continue. So I'm 67 years old. I'm still working. My husband is 71 years old. He's still working. We came 1976 to United States. We didn't got no help, no welfare, no nothing. We work hard for our bread. We paying our taxes since then. Until now, we are working hard. I don't know what they want us to do. We're doing whatever they are asking. We need your help. We want to continue our bakery. I hope you give us a chance to continue to survive with my kids and with my grandkids. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Thomas. Followed by Hovannes Kejejian. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, I'm here to speak in support of the Kermanic Bakery.
Could you tell us your name, please, for the record?
Oh, Robert Thomas.
Thank you.
Here to speak in support of the Kermanic Bakery, and the reason why is I've been neighbors with them since the late 80s. And they're good people, good American dream kind of hardworking people. And my family owns property to the east of them and also to the north of their property, and also to the south on the other side of Colorado. And it's probably about 15 plus tenants, and they're good neighbors. They're good neighbors, and I don't have any problems. And I'm a property manager, and it's very important that each of the tenants provide quiet enjoyment to the rest. It supports their business, and everybody gets along. And so when problems do arise, I solve them, and I make sure that they're solved right away, because I have a lot of tenants in there, and it's very important to have a good atmosphere, business climate. And it works. I haven't, in this very difficult climate, economic climate, I haven't lost a single tenant yet. And, had to hunt down the rent sometimes, but let me tell you, it's a good block. It's really a good block, and I'm proud to have Kermanek Bakery as a neighbor. And I just wanted to say that, and thank you.
Thank you,
Sir, Mr. Thomas.
Mr.
The
Quintero.
properties to the north are residential properties, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a duplex that my family owns. Yeah, it's number 20, parcel number 25, and parcel number 3.
Okay, I'm not sure that's visible, but we'll to the north. Hovannes Kajejian, followed by Fred Mendoza.
My name is Hovannes Kajejian. I have a property next to this property. I have 3 stores next to him. That parking lot belongs for 3 people. Me and him and the other guy. That parking lot belongs to 3 people. And my tenant, he don't have no complaint with those people. He say he don't have no problem with them. I asked him, do they ask him too? I said, does truck give you problem? He said, no. Until he moved back his store, further our place, he don't have no problem. That's it. I have that thing to tell you. I had the same problem with my business in Pasadena. Everything got smooth. I live in Glendale 40 years. I had the business 600 East Colorado. I'm not here to bother those people. Please just help him. That's it.
Question.
Question, Mr. Weaver.
Now there's 6.
That's 6 tenants. Property belongs to 3 people.
3 people.
Yes.
Okay.
Him.
Hold on, Mr.
That guy. Yeah.
Mr. Kajejian, hold on.
No.
Just a moment.
Oh, I
Listen
understand.
to the question.
I understand what you said. I don't need to. Okay, so you're the landlords. You own the property.
I own
and the parking lot.
Parking lot belongs to 3 people.
Also, the same 3 people.
No, property separate. I own. Parking lot belong to 3 people. It's here.
Same
here,
3?
Here. Yes. And
well, I don't need to see that. Is it the same 3 people?
Same 3 people on the parking lot.
Okay. So you own the buildings. And
I own the building. And I own the parking lot.
And you share the parking lot.
Not share. Everybody own it. Every one of us own the parking lot. It's here.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at. The 3 of you share a parking lot.
Yes,
You're all
sir.
ownerships
Yes, sir.
of it.
Yes, sir.
Yet there's this problem between you.
We don't have no problem.
Hold on, sir. Wait for his question.
Well.
And don't argue with him, please.
No, I don't argue.
Thank you. No. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to understand. Neighbors have complained about noise.
Yes.
But the 3 of you that own the buildings and the parking lot say there is no problem.
Yes.
So where's the noise?
Noise, his truck supposed to be, he has a Frigidaire. Okay?
Okay.
His truck, he has a bakery in it. Make the run until morning. That Frigidaire make a noise. Those people complaining.
Oh, because he has to keep the refrigerating unit running.
Yes. Now he took it further. He behind his stores because property is too long. He take it there. Now, no noise, I think. I think it's no noise. I don't know. And this guy say, he don't have a report to police. I called million time police. And I go there 11 o'clock at night. Because a lot of kids there do drugs and stuff like that. I go there, okay? People call me and I go. I call the cop too. Everybody knows. Call the cop, tell them I want this kitchen done. Everybody tell you who's there.
You've told me there's no problem between the landlords.
We don't have no problem. I don't have no problem with them.
But there is one truck that has a refrigerating unit.
Two trucks.
Two trucks that have to leave the refrigerating units on all the time.
Yes, sir.
When they're there.
Yes.
And those two refrigerating trucks belong to?
To him, to Becker.
Okay, and what times are they there?
I don't know really. I'm not there. You know?
Okay, that's a question we'll have to ask.
Yeah, truck is there. Now, no problem because truck is too further now.
Okay, we'll have to find out when.
You're done
Yeah.
with him. Thank you, Mr.
You're
Katia.
welcome, sir.
Thank you. Next speaker is Fred Mendoza.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and a member of the council. My name is Fred, and I live right behind the bakery, and I don't see any problem. When I received my letter, I said, "What's the problem?" And I even asked my tenants. They have no complaints. I even talked to them this afternoon, and they said no complaint. So that's all I could say. And I think the bakery is good for me, so I don't have to drive and buy the Armenian pastry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank
Wait
you.
a minute, Mr. Mendoza. Mr. Mendoza.
Mr. Mendoza.
I have a question. Where exactly is your property? Which is your property?
My
have the big
property-
parcel?
Don't speak, just...
Okay. Okay.
The alley.
Okay.
Directly back.
Next to the alley.
Next to the alley.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jerome Pavone and Hermine Abadjan. Did I pronounce that right?
Jerome Pavoni.
Pavoni, I'm sorry. Pavoni.
Close enough for Jess. I'll be brief. Did you want a copy of this?
If you'd submit it to the clerk, we'll make it part of the record.
Thank you. I'm the owner, our family's the owner, of parcels 3 and 5 and 6, right next to the Carmanian Bakery, for relation to where we're at with this whole ordeal. Again, my name is Jerome Pavone, representing my family and my interests there. I'm here to represent family interests with regards to this appeal being heard today, the variance to allow wholesale from a retail location. I'd like this board to keep in mind I wouldn't be here today if the board didn't at first approve this variance. And furthermore, I have several properties here in Glendale. Not one of them has it caused me to come before you. This is because I operate within the boundaries of the code that governs this business, our businesses at any of these locations. The codes were put in place to prevent just such problems that we are faced here today, and I'm a responsible man, and my family has been here in Glendale since 1949. We too are also immigrants. We have always tried to be fair and have worked out any and all problems that has arisen amongst ourselves. Owners, unfortunately, during the past, the unwillingness of the bakery owners to adhere to the stipulations of the variance has created ill will and tension in the neighborhood, with our neighbors. Now we are faced with something new, and I am once again here before this board. Quite frankly, I'm on my tether's end. I've been on the phone with the police department. I've been on the phone with the code enforcement, all of which has fallen on deaf ears. This is a C1 property, not a C3 property. Maybe it's time that the bakery considers the fact that they've simply outgrown this location. On a different note, that's the direction we were headed. I spoke to Henry just this other night.
The bakery has gone through some transformations that I'm pleased to say have made it amenable for all of us. Their trucks have fallen into that. He informed me that the reason for this appeal was nothing more than to save on some fees, that they wanted to plan for more than a 2-year grant. I have no problems with the extensions, but of the original 2-year granted, if it's only in an additional 2 more years. For the past few months, it's been okay. I've been pleased with the way the bakery has handled themselves with regards to parking, noise, and other and their willingness to do business that doesn't infringe upon any other neighbors and their rights. I would also like to state to this board that if that had been the norm, again, there wouldn't be a problem. But over the past 5+ years, that hasn't been the norm. The variance that was granted for the bakery was not to exceed 3 stoves. They did. It was not supposed to have exceed 2 trucks behind their building at any given time, and they did.
If you could conclude your remarks, Mr. Pavoni, sure.
With the limitations placed on the bakery from the prior meeting, and if we hold true to the track that we're on, my family and I are not opposed to an additional 2 years to their original 2-year that they were granted. But I would also urge the council to leave the opportunities open that if I find myself in the same situation again, that this variance could be negated. I can't emphasize how many times I've made complaints and it fell on deaf ears, and I just don't want to be put in that position again. I would say they're good folks, and they're showing an absolute willingness to work with their neighbors now, but that wasn't the case before.
Thank you very much.
Okay, can you hold on?
Certainly.
I have a question for you. The CUP is to that detail, as the gentleman points out, that only 2 trucks were allowed to be parked and so forth?
The original, you mean the original use variance that was approved? I am going to refer to Brad Collin to come and answer those questions, because he has the file.
I'm curious. The gentleman says that there were only 2 trucks allowed, and that in fact 3 have been.
Don't go away.
That was under the previous use variance, not the one under the most recent one.
Not the past 5 years, but the ones before that. Okay. And what is your, okay, thank you. Mr. Pavone, in terms of your perception, I mean, you're a property owner there, and what's your perception of the delivery issues in terms of trucks? I see meat market trucks, there's a meat market.
All of my businesses are open during normal business hours, with exception of the Thai food restaurant. They stay open till, I believe, 9 o'clock, making deliveries out of a vehicle, a car, to the surrounding neighborhood. But none of my other businesses that are there receive after 6 o'clock. They're closed. They close, they open at 8, 9 o'clock, and they close at 6. When the sun's down, they're gone. I was always under the impression that it was the variance allowed for 2 trucks. The pictures that I submitted last time were, I've been there at 11, 12 o'clock at night, not been able to find a parking stall behind my own building. That caused me distress, to say the least. I would not be here again, if everything had run as it has during the past 5 to 6 months. They've shown an absolute willingness to be compliant with everything and moving positively with their neighbors. And if that is the track we're on, I'm good. If our neighbors aren't complaining to me, because I'm the one that they come to, they don't necessarily go to the Carmanians. This is a community, a very tightly bound community, and one complaint can reflect.
Okay. I think you answered his question. Ms. Friedman.
So my question is, do you get the sense that the improvements that you've seen in the conditions is because of new stipulations that have been put on them with this extension of the...
Yes, ma'am. I believe that the improvements that we've seen is because we're putting our best foot forward because we have 2 years. We have an appeal coming, and we want to put our best foot forward to shine brightest for the possibilities of an extension through the
Okay, well,
efforts of their.
But that's a little different than what I asked.
I'm sorry.
Do you believe that any of the conditions that have been put on them at this point, any of the new conditions, are resulting in the improvement?
Yes, I believe it has. Their willingness to work with everybody surrounding, due and largely to the conditions that they've put on them. I haven't heard many complaints with regards to the noise issues. They've adhered to only 2 trucks. At any time I've been behind there, they've kept it to 2 trucks. So the noise issues, I haven't heard from anybody with regards to that. My tenants are now telling me that they're satisfied. Okay. Things are working. Yeah, great. But this is all due in large to the
indication.
Yep, the stuff that they put on.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it for now. We may need you later. Hermine Abajan with, now you have a translator? Susie, you're translating for? Okay.
So I have my own 3 minutes and my mother as well, so.
Okay, so 3 minutes. Who would like to go first? You for yourself or you as translator?
Let me start, and then if my mother wants to add anything.
Okay. So we're going to go with Susie for her 3 minutes.
Okay.
And then you'll do translating for your mom.
Sure, if she wants to add anything.
Okay, so let's start with Susie for 3 minutes.
Sorry, Mom.
Hold on 1 second as soon as Mr. Kasake.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
that'll have to be part of the record, too.
And yeah, we have pictures.
Okay, that means we have to take those away
That's
from
fine.
you. That's okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm told you can start anytime.
Okay. My name is Susie Abajian, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my mother, Hermine Abajian, and other residents of 1350 East Orange Grove, as well as 1354 East Orange Grove, which is located directly behind the parking lot. If you can see, our apartment complex is right there. It's actually, we own it. We own that. And then this is the parking lot where the issues had been taking place. So what we're asking you is to sustain the Planning Commission's decision, because we feel that even though there have been some improvements because of the conditions placed on the bakery, that 6 months is not enough to extend their license to 5 years. And that's because we don't have any assurance that this is going to continue. And as stated before, it's much harder to revoke a license than to sustain the Planning Commission's decision. So that's what we're asking you to do. And our complaints, as you can see on the letter that we submitted, was that the bakery was not operating within business hours, and the noise from the industrial trucks, et cetera, et cetera. You can see all our complaints there. And also, after business hours, there had been some gang activity in the parking lot because it's totally open. People can access it through this alleyway. And there's no gate right there. So kids would come and just congregate after business hours and do all kinds of things. And if you turn the page to page 3, there have been police records and other things, other issues documented in public records. You can check these things. There was a robbery, etc. And also, although the bakery doesn't own all of the parking lot, it's the owner of a third interest of the property. So they are responsible as owners to maintain the cleanliness of the property, which has been an issue. Although the bakery has had some improvements in the past 6 months, there's still the bakery still needs to prove to us that it can operate within business hours, because on page 4, there was a truck documented delivering grains and bakery ingredients before business hours, and that was during this 6-month period. It's on page 4, you can see that. And also, yeah, so that's... So the cleanliness is also still an issue, and we just feel that 6 months is not long enough. We are the residents that live directly behind the parking lot, and over the years, this condition has been deteriorating because of the wholesale operation of the business. We don't want the business to suffer, but this is also our home, and that's where we live, and we can't continually deal with this and come in front of the council and testify over and over again. And we just feel that that's not long enough for the bakery to prove themselves. So do you want to add anything more? Oh, and we also were asking that the bakery would invest in a gate that would be closed during business hours.
Electronic gate.
I mean, after business hours.
Yeah.
Okay, as soon as, okay, so your time is up.
Okay.
You have 3 minutes to translate for your mom, or your mom can speak herself.
Okay. Do you want to add anything, Mom?
But you have to come to the microphone, ma'am.
Okay. Come over here.
Name.
I am Hermina Abacan. We live in this exactly next. Our parking lot is in front of us, like front yard. We see everything there happening. On Saturday, big truck came and bumped the wall. Our wall, we have a wall. It is all cracked. We called the police. They said, I can't make a report because this is private property. You have to make a lawsuit. Anytime we call the police, they say, this is private property, so we need to express ourselves somewhere. We came especially for that. The trucks, not the bakery trucks, other trucks also, come and pump our wall, back, parking rear. And the dirt, the trash we see from our window. At 7 in the morning, delivery truck comes. 7, no one is open. Center is closed. And the delivery truck comes, makes noise, closes the entrance. If it is parked on Orange Grove, it is closing the driveway of our neighbors. Last time we came and spoke with the signatures of our neighbors. This time we came alone for just our family.
And also, the bakery has access on Colorado Boulevard, which is a commercial avenue, and why not, conduct their truck deliveries from the Colorado end and not the Orange Grove end? Because they do have access from that end. So,
okay, this is.
Okay, thank you. We're going to take that from you, but we'll see if there's any questions.
Question.
Mr. Weaver.
I'm confused. Everybody that's spoken so far said, no problem, no noise. You say there's noise.
we're the ones who live directly where the noise is. I don't know where a lot of the people who have spoken were property owners. They don't live where this is taking place. We actually live here. Actually, there's another resident who's going to speak who also lives here, and that's been a problem for him as well. So we're the ones that are directly behind the parking lot. This is the parking lot. That's where we are. And that's where the trucks park and all the truck operations happen.
Cleanliness, the noise, and then hitting your house or your walls or whatever.
And also, they're not operating within business hours. That's been a problem.
Business hours.
Can I say one more?
I'll come to you.
They used,
Only if you're going to answer his question.
Yes.
yeah.
And one other thing, please.
We complained because they leave the truck out with the refrigerator all through the night.
All through the night?
Because
That used to be the case.
They load the truck, they turn on the refrigerator.
Oh, I know,
When I was
loud noise.
teacher, I used to get up at 5. I couldn't sleep till 1 or 2 a.m. Then I started taking the sleeping
Any other
pills.
questions?
Go to sleep.
Okay, thank you,
Our
ma'am.
situation was terrible, but now it's not happening. It is okay now. But we want to be sure that this will go on.
It's okay now. You just want to make sure it continues. Okay.
Thank you. Next speaker, and you can drop that with the clerk, please, is Garbis Mazbanyan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council member, staff. I live exactly in the parking lot. where it goes.
Tell us your name, please.
Garbis Mesbenian.
Thank you.
1354 Orange Grove. I live in the parking lot exactly, and I can see everything. When I was 6 months ago in the commission meeting, since that day, it's too much change. I mean, lot of changes. I can say 30 to 40%. But problem is not only the bakery. I realized that this morning, Mr. David Pavon was with me. I show him a couple of things, what's going on. It was, if I'm not mistaken, 7 o'clock. Truck came, he took the trash, big trash cans out. After that came 2 trucks, big truck, huge trucks. They came again for the trash, took it out. And this is, everything is noise. After that, the stores open at around 8:30, 9 o'clock. We start the day coming to customers, whatever, trucks coming, delivery. After that, 3 o'clock, it comes the high school gangs. In the morning, this morning, we saw again 4 guys. They came just to smoke. Mr. Pavon was with me. I yelled at them, they left, before school, before high school. 3 o'clock, high school kids come. They do this thing, again it's noise. They sit on our lot, our stairs. No ladies can go out. I go out, I yell at them, they leave. We come through 5, 6, it goes on. Some people comes, they pick up the boxes, trash from the trash, because they leave it like that. It's not organized. It's not organized. It passed 8:30, all the stores closed. After that, I'm not hearing that much noise from the bakery. Now it's very good. I'm happy from the result. But this Sunday, he worked with me. He cut the noise from Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. There wasn't any noise this weekend. I call him Joseph. Joseph, I'm happy on this condition. Very good. At least I can sleep sometimes. After 8 o'clock in the evening, it comes other group after closing. Now bigger gang stuff. They come 2, 3 cars in the parking lot. They do drugs. There is a van. It's blocked the view on me that I can see. This is the picture. Behind that van, I don't know what they do, and I call police. This is my job daily. Every day, 4 times a week, 4 times a week I call the police, every day.
If you could
Saturday and Sunday I call the police.
If you could wrap it up, sir.
Yeah, this is it. This is it.
Question, Mr. Weaver, then Mr. Draymond.
When do you hear the refrigerated trucks running all night?
I'm not hearing it now. I mean, after 8, I'm not hearing anything.
The night is silent.
At night it's silent. I mean, it's the trucks. The lawyer or whoever they mentioned. There is no trucks in the evening. There is no delivery.
Okay, thank you, sir. You answered his question. Any other questions?
Yes.
Mr. Draymond.
Mr. Masbanian.
Yes.
A question for you. With regard to the issues in this appeal.
Yes.
So, setting aside the issues of the other businesses and their trucks, and the high schoolers who are smoking or doing other things, and whether or not the police are enforcing as you would like them to, those issues specifically related to the bakery and its operations. What is it that you would like us to do with regard to this appeal?
Okay, the time. In the morning, it doesn't matter if they start 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. Of course, if we have trucks, it's coming here, going in and out, I'm going to hear it. I'm going to wake up. But in the evening, at least, let's say, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, if they close, if we have a gate or at least a chain, nothing came in, goes in that parking lot, I mean, at least we're going to sleep a little bit.
And the trucks that are coming in after 8 or 8:30 that you're referring to?
No, we don't. I'm not seeing any trucks coming.
So
after
closing
8.
the gate would keep. Who is it you would like to keep out?
Keep out all the others, the neighbors. They coming in. They throwing trash in the trash cans. They taking the boxes.
Okay, these are the people not related to the bakery.
Not related to the bakery.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. What I was going to do is, Mr. Khan, do you need a 3-minute conclusion? And then we're going to have questions open for staff and anyone else, if someone wants to call someone back up for another question. 3 minutes.
Thank you once again, Rodney Khan. I'll try to be brief and address the issues that I heard. First of all, as it relates to any of the drug issues or gang activities, that has absolutely nothing to do with the Chromatic Bakery and what we're doing here this evening. The gentleman said about calling the police. My response or remarks related to the bakery, not whether people are calling the police on drug activity or not. They may be, but that has nothing to do with the bakery. In terms of the truck that bumped the wall, it's not our truck. As you're getting a flavor or sense of from the people that are speaking, there's a lot of activity that's going on back there. And a lot of it has nothing at all to do with the bakery. Deliveries, trash, boxes, everything else has nothing at all to do with the bakery. Ms. Friedman, you never got your question answered. And the answer to your question is, what would be the ideal hours of operation? Our ideal hours of operation would be from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. That would be ideal for the bakery. The property, one gentleman said the property is in the C1 zone. The property is not in the C1 zone. A portion of the property is in the C1 zone, and a portion of the property is in the C3 zone. It's actually a very unique parcel in that it has split zoning for the land and split zoning for the building. And that's the rationalization that was originally used to grant the variance in the first place. There was a mention about a gate, and I guess I'll conclude my remarks on the gate. We would be happy, and I checked, in terms of installing or paying for a gate to be installed, if that helps, and then share keys or clickers or whatever it is that you think is appropriate to do it to help reduce the gang activity or the people doing drugs or anything else. It helps our business, our property as well. So we would be happy to do that.
Do you have the authority to do that, though?
You know what? I don't know. I would ask. I would ask as property owners, and I don't know all the logistics as it relates to the ownership, but we would talk with the ownership and say, this is what we would like to do, and if it can be agreed by all parties, we would pay for the gate.
Eva LaRue.
Well, it's not residential.
Mr. Weaver. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't go there,
Mr.
please,
Weaver.
Mr. Mayor.
I couldn't. No.
Okay, we've heard about hours they like to operate. I understand the bakery delivers all over Southern California. What time do they need to pick up and take deliveries out? 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, 6?
Councilman Weaver, if I'm understanding the question, they deliver on one day.
One day only.
Monday.
And what time?
They deliver. They have.
When do they pick up and start
Well,
loading up?
it's deliveries that go out, and we would comply with the hours of operation, which are between, if we said 7 a.m. and 8 p.m., it would be within that easily.
Okay.
In fact, it would be even earlier than 8 p.m., but if we're trying to operate on a uniform pattern, that's what we would do.
Do you know if the bakery uses any refrigerated trucks?
Yes, they do. And in fact, as it relates to the refrigeration issue, there were 2 trucks that have refrigeration issues are items at the top. They are not operating those in the evening. What they do is in the morning when they load the product, they are then turning on the refrigerator.
Those are the only ones that you know of in the back.
The only ones that the bakery has.
Well, I know, but do
Right. There are other deliveries, for instance,
there's
Mr. Weaver,
two
for wheat, for...
markets,
Yeah.
meat. I doubt if they're delivering around the country.
No, but I think that in terms of the refrigeration unit,
Yes,
you probably
we
have it for the meat as well. And that has nothing to do with the bakery.
But I don't know them, but I assume that they're not that big an operation to bring in refrigerated trucks and taking meat out of the meat market and delivering it around Los Angeles. Could be wrong, I'm just wondering.
Councilman Weaver, I think it's the opposite. We deliver our product out, whereas
They're
the
delivering
markets
it
would
in.
be bringing it in.
And you don't know what their hours of delivery are.
I know that the city called, and when the city calls and says, what are your delivery hours, I'm sure you give very, very neutral hours as it relates to deliveries. That's what was in your packet as part of it.
Mr. Quintero.
I'm very familiar with bakery and the other businesses. You have to be quiet. It's a rather narrow entrance and exit through Colorado. Is it wide enough that the delivery trucks could leave through Colorado?
Councilman Quintero, the answer is no.
Didn't think so.
It's not. And in fact, as it relates to the item about delivering on Colorado, I think that would be a nightmare for traffic as it relates to any businesses and shops delivering on there. On top of which, you got to remember, the bakery is only one piece of the puzzle here. All the other trucks would still come in the back, and all the other trucks would still deliver. And then you would now have that impact on Colorado Street as well. And it wasn't designed that way.
I'm going to give you a
Mr. Weaver.
hypothetical case. What if you and the other owners had a restricted yellow zone in front of these businesses that would allow for deliveries between 4 and 7 a.m., time when the Colorado Street would be empty anyhow, but restricted only for deliveries or out, either way. Yellow zone. Already talked to Public Works, it's something they could look at. No guarantees. And I'm just wondering, is that possible? There's that passway through. Is it possible, or whatever they're loading with is so wide it can't get through that space?
Councilman Weaver, I think we would look at any suggestion that it relates to the loading and unloading. That would be in addition to, I'm assuming, the loading when it's not at those times. But I've already kind of mentioned that we don't need to load at 4 a.m.
Well, I know, but I'm saying the street would be vacant that time.
Sure.
Have to between 4 and 7 or whatever. I'm trying to get the noise out of the back if there is noise.
We would be happy to listen to any.
Colorado.
Sure.
Okay, if there's no other questions of Mr. Khan, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Khan. Okay. Now, questions of anyone else? Ms. Friedman.
I have a bunch of questions for staff. The first question is, tell me that what I'm hoping is correct in saying that this is a type of zoning we do not do anymore?
Oh, the split zoning?
Yeah.
It is absolutely the type of zoning we do not do anymore.
Okay, good. Just wanted to be sure. Now, and this may not be a question for you, this may be a question for Neighborhood Services. I don't know who's here. What is the regulation for this lot and others like it in terms of hours of operation going in and out? Could they, by code, run those refrigerated trucks all night, or is there a limit at which that noise is supposed to stop?
There is the noise ordinance in the municipal code that they need to abide by, and I think Chair Hill could answer with regard to these local types of operations and what our way of administering that is.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff. In regards to our noise ordinance, there is a penal code section.
Tell us who you are.
Shea Hill Neighborhood Services Inspector. There is a penal code section that regulates nighttime noise, any unreasonable noise. You can have unreasonable noise in the day. You can have it especially at night, generally after 10 o'clock p.m. and A refrigerated truck, of course, would probably be an unreasonable noise at 10 o'clock. The permits or their uses are, the planning department decides, the specifics on. We're going to allow for 1 truck, 2 trucks. You can have a refrigerated truck. So there is no, black and white. It just depends on each individual case. And in dealing with this particular property, I did a search back from 2000 to current. We've been out and had actually 4 cases. Basically, 3 of the cases were for property maintenance issues, inoperative vehicles, which not necessarily tied to the bakery, but just for that particular address. Graffiti, which we get throughout the city, and all of those issues have been resolved. We haven't had any open case since 2004. My contact, because I'm assigned to that area with the field rep, and we're very proactive, and generally, if we've had noise complaints, the cops unit of the police department would definitely be on the phone with me first thing in the morning saying, hey, we need to tackle this position or this issue, and that hasn't been the case. There are a couple of, listening to everybody and the different complaints. There's a bunch of different things that are going on at the property, not necessarily related to the bakery, the gang, the smoking, and just sitting back there listening, I'm thinking the property owners that are having issues with trespassers, I can get trespass letters set up with cops, and we can deal with that issue and start working with other issues that are going on at the location.
Okay, so just so that I understand it, if the residences are having noise issues after 10 o'clock, we have within the code what means to address that, and at the planning director's discretion, they can set up either quiet hours or quiet zones within the parking lot.
Right.
So that's that issue. And in terms of their complaints about cleanliness, I know that it's private property, but it still falls under the purview of neighborhood services, correct? And have you been going out and issuing citations for them for cleanliness that ended a certain point, or is that still ongoing?
We don't have any ongoing property maintenance issues. The times that we did have, complaints, whether they're graffiti or inoperative vehicles, those matters were addressed either via notice of violation or identifying the violator and getting them to take care of that problem. But
so I'm looking at a photograph from one of the residents who testified that's dated April 29th of this year, showing a big mountain of trash. So I'm assuming that you didn't issue any kind of a notice because you weren't called on that.
No, I wasn't called on that.
Which isn't to say it didn't exist, just
Right.
that you weren't called on it. Thank you. And
Just the photograph?
yeah, and do you want me to give comments now, or just
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You might as well.
Okay.
Yeah, you might as
Okay.
well. Let's move
So, I think that it's pretty clear that there has been issues on this property. Whether or not it's the fault of the bakery, it's going to be impossible, I think, for anyone to know. But it shouldn't be a surprise to the bakery, given that you can have a seat.
Okay.
Thanks. Given that there have been these issues, and one of the property owners acknowledges that, the neighbors certainly do, and I'm looking at a photograph, and I would challenge any of the 3 parties that own this lot to look at this picture and tell me that it's okay for someone to look out their window and see a big mountain of trash next to a truck. It's not okay, and so that's what leads to this kind of thing. So, yeah, you're in the firing line because you're the one that's here with a variance, whether or not it's your issue. And what I would love to find is a way that your business can thrive and continue, but their concerns can be addressed. From what was said, it seems as though the truck operation is disconnected with your hours of operation to a certain extent. So your retail operation, your front-of-the-house operation could stay open until 8 o'clock without trucks running. Is that correct? That was sort of why I asked that question. Because of that, I would be okay with, since this is de novo, with extending those hours or giving you the flexibility to do that. I'm not saying that the rest of my colleagues would agree, but for me, I would be comfortable with that. But I'm also would want to limit the hours that your trucks could operate, and I would want the planning director to take a look at this lot for all the businesses and to see what we can do to set up quiet hours and quiet zones buffering the residences, not for this bakery specifically, but for any commercial activity. I think that really goes to the heart of your concerns and doesn't impact them, doesn't single them out sort of for enforcement. And that's what I would like to see. And assuming that, you could live with that, I think that could be a compromise. And as long as the planning director with code enforcement felt comfortable that they could do that and enforce on that and make sure that that happened so that you had some relief, I have no problem amending this approval to 5 years and also to extend your ability to operate your business to 8 o'clock. I think that gets you what you want, it gets them what they want, but I would make sure that the planning director got on this, code enforcement got on this, and made sure that you got your quiet hours from all trucks. I also would like to see the gate, security gate, some kind of a locked gate because they have a crime problem that they shouldn't have to be dealing with. And I want code enforcement as well to do visitations, some kind of scheduled visitations to look at the cleanliness and trash. You've got a meat store, a bakery, and a restaurant, and you've got boxes that probably have food in them, which means you have vermin and you have all kinds of other things that have no business being behind a bunch of people in their apartments. So if we can set that up for code enforcement to do some spot inspections and get this lot under compliance, I think you guys can have your business, the businesses there can find a way of operating, and you can have some relief, and that would be my solution.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Najarian?
Mayor. Sorry, just wanted to know if you closed the public hearing.
I will close it now.
I'll save everyone the time and
Mr. Quintero, then
say
Mr.
I
Weaver.
feel the same way as Ms. Friedman. She took the words right out of my mouth, right down to the gate, the emphasis on code enforcement, etc. The bakery's been there for many, many, many years. Other businesses have come and gone, although a couple of them have been there for a while. So anyway, everyone has to work together. Fortunately, 3 different property owners own that parking lot, so they can coordinate their efforts to make it a little more palatable for the rest of the blocks. But there are 2 votes for that solution.
Would you defer to Mr. Draymond?
Yes, I defer to Mr. Drummond.
Deferring to...
Wait, I want to hear your opinion.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been largely quiet. I have one more question, I'm sorry. And it is for Officer Zakarian.
Ooh, a new player in the game.
Just when you think the final curtain is about to ring down, a new player.
A new witness.
Matt, I know this is not normally the area, geographically the area where you spend your time when you're at work.
I reopen the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry. I thought I was still I was waiting for others to have their chance. But we keep hearing this recurring comment, even by some students, about gang activity. And I just wanted a clarification, if you can. Is that really what we're talking about here? Because in the written material that's been submitted by actual residents and their discussion here, what they're talking about is high school kids stopping by coming there on their way to work, loitering, smoking, being chased out, and so on. Is that really what we call gang activity, or is this just teenage kids just shouldn't be there that are not supervised and aren't where they're supposed to be? Is there a distinction? I'm just curious. We call this gang activity?
Councilman Draymond and City Council staff. That's a loose term, and when we talk about gangs, generally we'll talk about grouping of people. Now, a known gang, I'm not aware of them. It's not my area, as you mentioned. I don't think that you'll see gang members hanging out in the same place. They'll probably be caught if they are gang members. What they are probably just loiterers that come in. They probably it's probably a dark place. I don't know if the lighting's good. Maybe code enforcement can tell me about that at night. Good place to hide out. where people aren't seen from the street level. That's generally what we see out there. So it's probably has its environmental design issues where people can go up there and do things where they can't be seen by the public.
So the police department and neighborhood services and other city departments would have recommendations for property owners in general as to how they can try to mitigate some of those things with, well, they've installed cameras, but proper lighting and security perimeter and things like that.
Yes, by all means, yes. And being that there's been calls generated, it's probably under the attention of community policing. If it's not, it should be, and that is where code enforcement and community policing can look at that issues too.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
I just want to point out something also related to this pile of trash. These are boxes. And when you're familiar with how small businesses operate, very often you see boxes that are piled up next to a dumpster, and then later in the day they're broken down and put in the dumpster, or they're taken by those who recycle cardboard boxes. But regardless, even the person that submitted the photo says, Mr. Mayor, this is a view from our window. Although this is not the bakery's problem, the bakery is owner of 1/3 interest of the property, and that seems to be emblematic of everything that this council member is hearing here tonight. Putting aside the other property owners and so forth, when we come down to the 2 or 3 people, really 2, that are living there that have spoken, what we're hearing is that things seem to be fine, but with regard to the bakery's operation right now, anyway, and that the issue is they want some relief in general from the operations that are going on there with the various businesses. The gentleman refers to issues of trucks and kids loitering and doing things they're not supposed to be doing there, and him having to take his time to chase them out of there, call the police. Discussion of the truck bumping the wall, but we don't know whose truck it is. It's theirs, it's not theirs. You know, I come to this with a long background of dealing with a business district that is just chock full of small businesses. Thomas, who spoke earlier, knows that. He has business property in Montrose. His family does. Where you have a very immediate interface between business and residential, and it's always complicated, and there are always issues that come up. The fact that this rises, I should say, to a point where we're in the middle of an actual appeal on this is beyond me, because what I'm hearing is the main players who are involved, i.e. the residents, are telling me, well, it's not really the bakery, but we have problems here and we want you to address it, so that's why we're testifying at this appeal. It's sort of an issue we need to know about, and it's an set of issues that are absolutely real and legitimate, but I'm not sure they have much to do with the operation of this bakery. The other issue is that the gentleman who is another property owner there mentioned is that, yeah, things are fine now, but we want to make sure that they stay fine, so let's not give them the 5 years that they've had prior, or the 10 years they've had prior to that. I'm not sure how we exactly become punitive in that sense. We don't give them their 5 years. Why? Because things have been basically have calmed down and simmered down as a result of this. But just in case, we're not going to give them the time they need to plan for the future of their business. I just can't do that. So what I can do is I can join my colleagues, Councilmember Quintero and Councilmember Friedman, and say we need to look at the security of the lot. We need to look at making sure that for all 3 property owners that security is provided there, that they work with either the police department or the police department in cooperation with neighborhood services and other appropriate staff to make sure that there's proper lighting out there, there's proper security there. This is not an issue for the bakery. This isn't just the bakery. This is all 3 property owners that have an interest in this lot. That we're looking at enforcement of noise issues, cleanliness, etc. Those are your issues as residents, and those are the issues you want addressed, and I agree with that. However, to me, those aren't the issues of this appeal. And the reason I say that is because those residents that live there keep saying, yeah, it's not the bakery. Yeah, well, they used to be that way, but it's not that way now. Okay, fine. This is an appeal that relates to the bakery. To me, they're entirely separate issues, and that's how I'm going to view them. So I agree with my colleagues on the security and the trash issues, cleanliness, and so forth. But with regard to the issues of the appeal, I would want to grant them the hours of operation that they need, and that they have their 5-year period. I haven't heard anything that tells me they shouldn't have that, and that's sort of what we're here to be talking about. The rest of it is stuff that I think we can address in the manner that Councilmember Friedman has suggested. So that's where I will go, and it sounds like there's a consensus building here, but we will see. I think that's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver.
Okay, heard a lot of confusing information here tonight. Where I'm at is 5 years. Electronic gate, and I think the three of you, or the 6 businesses or whoever, the 3 owners, get together and pay for that electronic gate. If you do not use Glendale trash GWP pickup, I suggest that you switch over to Glendale, where you'll be guaranteed a pickup as often as you need it. And maybe you can arrange to give our trash trucks liquor or whatever so they can open up the gate whenever you feel they need to get in there to remove trash. Bakery hours, yes. You're fronted on Colorado. You should have the right to do business 8, 9 o'clock, whatever you think. In these times, to shut you off at dark, we try to keep businesses to keep the doors open to make money, and here we're closing the doors down so you have to go home. That doesn't make any sense. So whatever hours you need. I'm still confused on delivery and the pickup hours. I still suggest that if there's a way and it makes sense to do it on Colorado, you can always talk to Steve Zern, find out if that makes more sense. Lighting, I don't know if you need more lighting back there. It'd have to be subdued because you don't need the residents that are there looking out the windows and seeing a whole lit parking lot. That's no fun. I'd also believe that the police and code enforcement should be out there more often, wherever they are, and whatever the phone numbers are that the residents and the businesses need to know, that is distributed to everybody in the neighborhood, every resident, whatever. They have the phone numbers of the police to call and the code enforcement to call, and that they will be out there in a timely manner till we get it under control. This appeal's been going on 6 months, and 6 months it's been pretty good. So maybe it's a coincidence, maybe the art of communication has helped resolve it all. But everybody's got to know that the more eyes we have on this, the better we are. No calls come into the police or code enforcement, it means it's working. No harm on that, so every resident, I think, should have it. So I think what I've said is I agree with my other 3 colleagues so far. 5 years and your hours of operation so you can make some money, continue to grow so that you have to move out of there and get a bigger place. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. I'm going to make it unanimous with the position of my colleagues, and I do have sympathy for the residents that back up against that commercial location. You shouldn't have to put up with that sort of noise. The problem is that there are different businesses, different trucks, different owners, and it should be cleaned up, it should be secured, it should be kept quiet. I think, unfortunately, for Kermanik, they were the first ones up to have any sort of hearing before the city, and a lot of the frustrations that the residents had built over the years was expressed and vented at that hearing. So I would definitely support the 5 years. I would support the And I don't know if we got specific. I think it was a 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. hours of operation.
With the exception of Mondays and Tuesdays, which they would like to continue until 10 p.m.
And that was in the condition that the Planning Commission approved, so.
Okay, that was a gate. And all the other, I don't need to reiterate them. I think I have no objection to any of the conditions and requirements that were made. Can we require, in other words, we're talking about a gate. We can place that requirement on this applicant?
I would, if I may, I would suggest that you direct staff to discuss that with the applicant and explore the possibility. And if it's possible to put in a gate, we will do it to the satisfaction of the director. If it's not possible legally, then we won't pursue it.
Mr. Mayor,
Let me go to Mr. Draymond.
all I was going to say is my concern is that issue with the gate. This is a jointly owned parking lot.
Right.
It's not one owner; it's three owners, as we've been told several times. Right. So I would encourage, as a separate issue, and I was going to anyway, Mayor, ask that we get into this property as a separate issue, talk to the owners, and make sure that it is secured properly. That we observe it and continue to sort of sit on this property, make sure that it is cleaned up and so on. But I don't know how we make that as a condition of one of three property owners. When all the testimony has been that it is not just one property owner that is causing the situation. In fact, with regard to the cleanliness, the very person who submitted the photograph said this is not the problem of the bakery with the pile of trash there.
I think it all works.
Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I was just going to suggest with respect to the gate, there's one or two ways to handle, I guess, one, the way Mr. Draymond just suggested it, which is that staff work with the property owners and his bakery to see if the gate can be put in. Another is just to put a condition that they install it to the extent that they can get the consent of all the owners of that parking lot. So there's one of two ways to deal with it. And
Okay,
but yeah, rather than have to go back and forth with the owners here, that's one of two ways to do it.
Right.
Well, the three owners are here. Raise your hands. Would you accept?
Well, hold on.
Well, yeah,
I'm sorry.
Hold on.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry.
Hold on, folks. Hold on. Hold on. Let's stick with that. Let's stick with that.
One.
Stick with that thought that we will go back to these owners who are here and discuss those issues with them and seek a resolution of them, and not muddy the issue of this appeal before us. So
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, for
that's okay. I had a feeling we were going to get there, but in any event, so who would like to make that motion?
Well, I asked of the three, which one are we going to be doing?
You want to close the public hearing?
I'll close the public hearing.
It's actually it's item 9B2.
Modifying
the conditions, and you would be modifying condition number 12 to change the hours from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and then changing condition number 14, which is changing it from 2 years to a 5-year period, so expire on May 11, 2015.
That includes Monday, Tuesday, differential.
And that includes the Monday, Tuesday exception for later hours.
Okay, very good. And did someone make that motion?
I saw move that.
Seconded by Ms. Friedman. Roll call, please.
Council members Draymond?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes.
Contact Water and Power.
Thank you. Okay. Very good. I love these appeals. I just want everyone to know that. Mr. Kasakian, what's next?
Mr. Mayor and Council, we return now to 6 on the agenda. Item 6 is oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to a speaker, but there will be no debate or decision, and city manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report.
Okay, if everyone that intends on leaving, please do so quietly. We still have some business to conduct. You can leave, but do so quietly, and we can hear you until you're out into the hallway. So don't walk past here and say, Yahoo or whatever. Mr. Noel Petter, followed by Margaret Hammond, then Robert Movsisian.
Mayor Najarian, council members, and city officers. My name is Noel Petter, and I've been here before once several months ago on the same matter I'm with here now. I've lived in Glendale 65 years at the same address, 1716 Hillside Drive, Glendale. And that house had its lawn since it was built. The lawn was such a mess of weeds that although it was mowed weekly, it cost a lot of water to maintain it. The parkway was solid roots from the city trees and my trees, and there was no way to grow grass there, and I poured and wasted a lot of water on it. You have a mandate in Glendale that we must conserve water, and it's very highly advertised. And I took this to heart and removed the existing old weed patch lawn with intention to put artificial turf in there. And I know you have samples of it from the same company that I was using on the back of the City Hall. The company's name is Your Turf. And they've put in over 2,500 installations in Southern California alone. And to my knowledge, in the Metropolitan Water District, Glendale is the only city that is prohibiting artificial turf on front lawns. I have artificial turf in my backyard. It has fooled everybody. It looks real. Nobody knows when they even touch it that it's artificial until I tell them. I also have been given permission by Gary Edsel to put artificial turf in the parkway, which has been there 5 or 6 years now. But when I tore out my lawn, and I spent a great deal of money to do this, the Neighborhood Services Department came by and ordered the workmen off the job, and then sent the police to be sure they were driven off the property because they wanted to stop it. Now, I understand there's a couple of properties in Glendale now that everybody has looked the other way on who have artificial turf. When I came here before and talked about this, I never got an answer from the council in any form as to why the artificial turf has been prohibited and when you are going to make a decision on this. This has been several months now. And I know you have test samples here. You have looked at it. You probably have studied it in your own private offices or whatever. And I'd like very much to have an answer tonight as to why you prohibit it and will you reconsider it?
At the end.
We will respond at the end, sir, and answer some of those questions.
All right. I did not do this to save the money of water, which some people seem to think was the reason. I did this to comply with the water conservation. And as an aside, the gardener doesn't have to mow it anymore, so there's no pollution. But right now I have a weed patch, a dirt patch, which is eroding upon the sidewalk and filling up the artificial turf in the parkway, which I've got to clean out. And it looks terrible. And all the rest of the neighborhood is pristine with nice front homes, nice appearance. They want me to plant any plant that will grow without water on the front yard. Poison oak, cactus, it doesn't matter. As long as Neighborhood Services is happy if I plant 50% of the area, which is, by the way, covered almost or over 50% by shade trees. So it's going to be hard to find something to grow there. But I like to have some answers.
As I said, sir, we'll respond at the very end, not of just your comments, but at the end of this session. So if you're done,
all right,
we'll get to that after the 3 or 4 remaining speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret Hammond, followed by Robert Movsisian.
When I sat that long, my knee won't work. Good evening again, Your Honor, members of the council, city staff. My name is Margaret Hammond. I'm here for a couple of my groups. Number one, The Glendale Historical Society is going to be having an event, and it's called Two Iconic Buildings from Opposite Ends of the 20th Century, and it's called Then and Now. And it will feature two buildings side by side that are completely different. One of them is the building that's beside the one building is the what used to be the mortuary, the Kiefer Irick mortuary, and which has a successful rehab to a building that's owned by the Assistance League, and that they have a thrift shop in the where the limousines used to park in the back. So it was a very successful. It is going to be on May the 20th at from 6:30 to 8:30. There will be guided tours of both buildings, both from the designers of the building and the historians who have use it daily. In other words, and we have a lot of information on the building, we should say, which is one of a kind probably in America. It was a very beautiful building, at least I think it is. There's parking in the Assistance League in the lot, and there will be wine, cheese, and sweets. And we welcome everybody to come and see these two wonderful buildings. And it's on Harvard Street. Here's my address. They didn't put an address. Isn't that interesting? Right, but near the library. It's true. But at any rate, yeah, isn't that an interesting thing? Okay, that's that. And then the other one is the Great American Cleanup that's coming on May the 22nd. And this is an event that Neighborhood Services and Clean and Beautiful have sponsored for years. And we ask volunteers come and say from 9 o'clock on Saturday morning and till noon you'll have goodies in the morning, coffee, drinks to start you off, to give you some energy. And you'll have hot dogs probably and so forth at lunchtime. So remember, that's Saturday, May the 22nd. And this year, the Duke Machen Park will be included as a cleanup, event, that people will be going up to Duke Machen and trying to clean up some of the fire, whatever, in the area, the mess that's there. So this is going to be a new thing this year. And then the final thing is the Fremont Park. You know, they have a beautiful rose garden. Fabulous, but it had been allowed to go down to nothing, just rambling roses, you might say. Not even that. And we had the LA Rose group came in and replanted all those roses. And that park is honoring the World War I veterans. It's a historical park. And it's now is really beautiful. I wish I'd brought some pictures of what they have turned it into. They've replanted all the roses in that park. And it's really a lovely park to see. So I would say that, it's something that we all can visit as part of our, what we own in the city, one of our jewels that people don't even realize. And again, I'm going back to your Clean and Beautiful Committee. And it is a city committee, and the things that the volunteers that are in that committee. Remember the abandoned shopping carts that were all over the city, and that we got that ordinance through, and look at the difference it's made. Look at how graffiti has gone down so dramatically that it's unbelievable. And also the smoking ordinance, which has helped immensely. I don't know, the butts are still around the city and streets and so forth, and maybe eventually that will go down. But the committee really works hard on trying to improve the quality of the life in Glendale for everybody. And we work with the Neighborhood Services. Sam Engel and his crew, his bunch of people really try to be on the ball and work for the best interest of the city. So I just want, and remember, we won a bunch of awards. One of them for the shopping carts, another one for the smoking ordinance from Keep America Beautiful. We're considered one of the tops. I think we won, was it first prize this year? Or maybe second. I know Sam went back to get it, the award. So, hey, we do a lot of work in the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. Mr. Movsesian.
Mr. Starbird, I again judge the book by its cover. Yeah, I judge the book by its cover. Mr. Mayor, Najarian, Ms. Friedman, Mr. Quintero, Mr. Dryman, Mr. Ardy, Mr. Racist, Mr. Weaver. Mr. Mayor, you were picked on last few weeks by some elderly who think they live in dark ages or fossil time. Before they accuse you of lying, they should call Americana and seek the truth, and not open their mouths before having the facts. I called Americana. I was told kids can play on grass with adult supervision. Even cats and dogs can play on grass. Number 2, there's a big guy who thinks he is a big shot in one of those so-called Christian TV stations. He was criticizing Islam because he wants to create controversy and promote his new book. As far as I know, it is against Christian teaching to criticize. He never criticized Jimmy Swaggart, who would preach on TV during the day and ask for money and was whoring around at night. When he would get caught, he would ask for forgiveness and for some more money. It would go on and on and on. Who are we to judge somebody's race, sir? Like that guy. Or religion, like that big guy. Or somebody's sexual orientation. There is no measurement for that. Our great President Bill Clinton taught us never to give up, and that is what I'm going to do, never give up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill.
This is the proof.
Mayor Najarian, council members. Last week, I came before you to make a public claim. I claimed that for too long, Councilman Frank Quintero had been dismissive of me and others who come to speak before the City Council. On several occasions, Mr. Quintero had been not just disrespectful, but outright rude. At a community forum, if one recalls, last year, he called community activists like me an inappropriate word, a word which many in the audience found appalling from a city public official. Last week, I had similar experience, but this time at the hands of Councilman John Draymond. What Draymond did is the perfect example that proves my claim of twisting the facts of a speaker. After I spoke and sat down, about 10 minutes lapsed when Mr. Draymond spoke to claim that I said I had been denied my constitutional rights of freedom of speech. Council members, I made no such claim. I repeat, no such claim. My words were about Mr. Quintero's attitude. He was disrespectful, abusive, and dismissive, especially when the public disagrees with him. After I sat down, Mr. Draymond twisted my words and made claims I never made. Sir, you twisted and twisted my words, while at the same time you tried to show how visually open the council is because these meetings are televised live. These meetings may be televised live, sir, but you are not honest in front of the cameras. I made the claim the city council has increased our budget by tens of millions of dollars each year. You, Mr. Draymond, did not address that point. This council has put our city under a larger and larger increase in debt and now has to practice slash and burn on city services. Your buddy, Mr. David Weaver, was pleased the other night that many people were seeing these events unfolding live on television and on the internet. All the way to Siberia, said Mr. Weaver, like he enjoyed washing our dirty laundry in public. Mr. Draymond, you are not the man I thought you were when my wife and I voted for you in 2007. You have definitely proven to me to be a good actor. How often are you going to twist my words after I sit down? Should I never sit down, Mr. Draymond, as you are disrespectful to me right now? We're talking to Mr. Najeri and Mr. Weaver. You're like your other buddy, Mr. Quintero, and Mr. Weaver now. If need be, Councilman Draymond, I will be back again and again to set the record straight for you and the public. What does it take, ladies and gentlemen, to be honest with the public who must be looking at these events tonight and asking themselves, who did we elect to find ourselves in this pickle tonight? And perhaps in April 2011, we should make some changes at City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohill. I don't have any other cards for oral communications.
I'll go first, Mr. Najarian. Once again, I reject Mr. Mohill's assertion, and actually I've always treated him with much more respect than he's ever treated me or the other elected officials or staff members, et cetera, et cetera. That's all I can keep saying. Anyone that comes to that podium, I always listen to him. I always make sure the staff follows through, et cetera. But with him specifically, it's absolutely not true that I've. And then in terms of what during the campaign, when he was actively working for Mr. Yosefian and Philpott. He was an active campaigner on their campaign staffs. Some of the things that he did during that campaign were just unbelievable, way past the pale of normal Glendale politics, I might add, up to that point. But I think my joke in that forum, quite the opposite. If I remember correctly, everyone in the audience laughed. They thought, Mr. Draymond, you were there. You remember everyone did laugh. But anyway, he, as they say, it's a free country, and he certainly can come up here as many times as he wants and continue to repeat his assertions. But I do disagree with him.
Mr. Draymond.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I have two things I want to talk about. One, I do hope we get some kind of response for Mr. Petter. But I do want to address Mr. Mohill on this as well. Mr. Mohill, I have to say, the mayor suggested to you last week that if you need assistance checking out the fact-checking what you're talking about before you come to the podium and speak, that the city staff is always available to you. I thought that was a very kind and generous way of saying what I would characterize differently, and that is, you come here and you make assertions, and they're not necessarily accurate. You pose them in a way and you say that I am just here to learn, but then you make assertions that are just sort of out of thin air. And then invariably those notions are exploded by staff or whomever is asked to speak. It sort of becomes sort of the Rosanna Dana of the oral communications session here at City Hall. But with regard to the specific thing you're concerned about,
never mind.
It's you say that what you were not talking about was democracy. You were not talking about your right to speak. That is precisely what you said. And that's the only point I was addressing. The reason I didn't address all these other points that you want me to is because I didn't care to address them that evening. So to put a finer point on it, I pulled a clip or two together, Mr. Mayor, and so I know Mr. Mohill likes his on-air time, so he's going to get just a little more on-air time. Brian, if you're there, can we roll clip 1? This is from the last meeting, if you're still awake over there at GTV 6.
But now you're even more offensive and more downright nasty to me and to those people who want to participate in this thing called democracy.
Democracy. That's what we were talking about, and that's what I referred to in my comments. That's what I chose to refer to. You said that's not what you said, but you did. But let's go back to the meeting before, because I was also referring to that. Let's go to clip number 2.
This is disgusting. Do we have a dictator here that tells us you can only speak, we only want certain people to talk here?
Thank you. No, that's not what we do here. Everybody gets to speak as long as they want to come here on a Tuesday. And that was also what I said. Let's go to clip number 3.
Do we have a dictatorship here? Is this a democracy? They're crying in Tehran.
This isn't Tehran, and they may be, but this isn't Tehran. This is Glendale, and we have an open system. And again, what you're talking about is democracy and your right to speak, which is what I addressed. Let's go to the next clip. Brian, that's me. Is that our last clip? I think that may be our last clip, Mr. Moyle. In any case, that's what I was referring to, not these other issues that you're trotting forth this evening. We agree, we disagree. Mr. Mohill, you're free to say what you want to say. I also want to assert this. You're not writing your scripts. Mr. Milano is writing your scripts, and I think I can prove that. And I think you should do your own speaking for yourself, and I think you will be far more believable if you do that. And, then you can leave out the razzle-dazzle of this council member. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope we get some comments for Mr. Petter and his neighbors.
Mr. Mayor, we can certify to your comments at the end there.
Just a
Oh,
moment.
no, you're not
Mr.
writing
Petter.
your own speeches.
Just a moment. Ms. Friedman. Please have a seat, and we'll, as soon as we're all done speaking, we're going to ask staff to give us some comments.
Well, I have a question, which is, I certainly wasn't prepared tonight to talk about the artificial turf subject, but since he did ask questions, how far can we go to give a response?
Councilman Freeman, the Brown Act provides that you can provide a brief response and then also provide direction to staff to follow up or obviously ask questions of staff to get additional information. But if you want a discussion of it, it would have to be brought back to the council as an agenda item.
Okay, then we're not allowed to engage in a discussion on the topic. I'm looking forward to it coming back as a subject so that we can discuss it formally. I understand the gentleman's frustration. And since he asked, I will just give you a thumbnail, which I believe is permissible as long as we don't discuss it or debate it, which is that I personally don't believe that the solution to California's water issue is to blanket the city in a carpet of rubber and plastic. I believe that we need to get our environment into balance, not further out of balance. I'm very concerned about what's in these materials. I know that the rubber that goes into a lot of artificial turf products is so toxic it's not even accepted by landfills. There's a lot of information now about runoffs from plastic ending up in groundwater. And I believe that it's a false dichotomy to say it's lawn or it's artificial turf. We know that there are a lot of plant materials, native and drought-resistant plant materials, that require almost no water or no water that can be used that are a living alternative. So that's where I'm at, and that's why, to this point, it hasn't come to me to vote on yet, but that's my problem with artificial turf. I just don't see it as a solution, And I believe that we need to get our ecology into balance and not out of balance, and that there's no difference between artificial turf and paving over your yard. It just happens to look different. So you asked for a response, and I'm giving you a response as much as I'm able to under the confines of the Brown Act. Thank you.
May I ask when that is coming back? Because I want to put AstroTurf in my front. In the opposite.
Let's ask Mr. Hagani, do you have a sense of when the report will come back?
It's not going to be within the next couple of months. It's put together along with a number of other zoning code amendment issues, because that's what it takes to do zoning code amendments as a legislative act. So we are discussing that and many other topics with the zoning code advisory group. I think sometime in the summer we are hoping to go to the planning commission with a recommendation.
No, I just that, like I said, I'm not prepared to have a whole discussion about this tonight, but I've done a lot of research, and there are pros, and there's a lot of cons. And I think that we need to have a full airing of all of those so that people understand the complexity. And I don't think that it's just a matter of aesthetics. I think that it transcends that, and there's a lot of issues with this product. And so it's not as simple as just, it's going to take some review on our part. And staff, I know, is putting together a report, and that takes time. And hopefully we can get that here sooner rather than later and get some closure on this. And I also do believe he had made an assertion that we were selectively enforcing. And if that's the case, then shame on us. We shouldn't be doing that. And I hope that we enforce on everybody equally.
Mr. Draymond.
Okay, my comment is this, and I also have some questions. Assertion was made about Mr. Edsel. What is the status of that?
Aaron is going to check that out. We don't know.
Okay. Second, do we have properties that you're aware of, Mr. Ghani, that we are allowing to use artificial turf and are just turning a blind eye to?
No, we're not properties that we're aware of. We have actually become allergic to some properties, and we have taken action. We have had those removed before they became an issue.
And that's within the setback.
This is within the front yard setback. Within the backyards, there are some places where artificial turf is allowed under the code.
And apparently Mr. Petter's yard is one of them, his backyard. He just stated he has it. Here's the thing. When this is coming back, to me, is a different issue. What the rationale is to support it, artificial turf or not, is rationale for what we do going forward with that. But as of now, we have an ordinance, and we have zoning, and that's what it is. Mr. Petter, you make the comment that it was a weed-infested wheat patch, or words to that effect. It's your front lawn. How did it get that way?
Age.
Well, the point is, you're well aware that we have this ordinance, and the point is, as your neighbors point out, you shouldn't have taken out your lawn and then, after the fact, now be complaining that the ordinance that you knew about in the first place is enforced. And I think you did, because you referenced your parkway from some time ago. And you've been here, as you said, a number of months ago, complaining about the issue. The point is, your neighbors are complaining because they've got to look at this, what you refer to as a mess in your front lawn. And as I understand from staff, some of the problem is you've uncovered roots from trees that may die as a result of that, which is why the city tried to help you by bringing you mulch, which you have apparently refused to put down on your lawn. So at this point, where do we go, Mr. City Attorney? Where do we go from here with a situation like this? What I'm not prepared to do is sit here and have a funny kind of game of chicken until we bring forth an ordinance so that retroactively it may work out to Mr. Petter's favor while his neighbors are having their quality of life and property values destroyed simply because he knowingly removed a lawn that he didn't maintain to begin with.
Councilmember Draymond, all I can tell you is that particular property is in process through code enforcement. There's a lot, like you referenced, there is a law in the books, and we're enforcing that until the council tells us they want a different policy.
And there are options besides, as Ms. Friedman points out, besides planting a lawn.
Okay, I am looking forward to a very robust debate on the propriety of artificial turf, faux grass, if you will, in the front lawns, but today is not the time for that. This has been a long process. The samples that you see out front, they've been out there for several months, and this was part of planning department's efforts to put it out there and see what the product is for all of us. So I will be working with Mr. Starbird and Mr. Hagani to make sure that we deal with this sooner rather than later, and for once and for all, have a decision and a discussion and involve those people that want to participate, including Mr. Mohill, in this discussion.
It'll be a de novo hearing, too, I might add.
I know that. So I don't think there's any other comments. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We're adjourned.